Warning. The following contains bright, flashing lights and/or imagery that may cause discomfort and/or seizures for those with photosensitive epilepsy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, awesome. We are back in studio here at the Suavecito headquarters. We have somebody pretty special to me here. Somebody that I've developed a weird relationship with. Raul, welcome.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you coming out and picking me up and taking me to eat at a local fantastic place.
Yeah, a birria.
Yes.
Oh, man, it's a birria place right at the bottom of Libertad.
Mm-hmm.
It is a classic birria place. Pide los tacos tostaditos. And you have it's a crunchy tortilla.
Man, and you called it because as we were leaving, there was more and more cars starting to pull up. That's the spot right there.
We just hit it right at the start when it starts getting really busy. Before we, go into this whole process of figuring out who you are and you talking to us about what you do and what you're about.
For sure.
You are the son of immigrants.
Yes, sir.
And it's a pretty interesting place to be in right now, being that you're in Tijuana. Being somebody that comes from the mean streets of Chicago in a lot of ways. There's this whole joke of Chirac, and here we have Tijuanistan, is what we used to call it, But you are a son of immigrants. This is a city that is built on that. It's a place, they call it the corner of the Latin world. It's a place where a lot of families, a lot of people with hopes and dreams have crossed into the United States looking for that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, about your family's experiences and how you came to be where you grew up?
Yeah. So, first off, right, thank you for the opportunity to do something that's like a mini pilgrimage, right? I won't make it as exciting as it was for my parents, but for me to cross the same border essentially that they crossed right back then when they crossed was super spiritual for me. Like I took on this wave of, I don't know, it was like this overwhelming feeling of just like warmth and connection to my parents, which I think was super cool for me at least. Yeah. And I think everybody will have their own experience doing it if they have that connection. And so my parents, mom is from Durango and dad is from Jalisco. Okay. So two different states, two different types of people and personality traits. Right?
I mean, Jalisco, joyous party, different type of individuals. Durango, serious work. Let's figure things out.
And she's very direct, very serious. So together they were fun. They were. So I think I took on my mom's work ethic and my dad's fun side because that's what they were. Yeah. Super hard, super strict, and just really hardworking. And that's what drove the patriotism is them coming to America, right? And they still kind of don't know a lot of English. So they're still limited on their English capabilities, but it didn't matter. America provided a place for them with their limited education and limited language, with the barriers being included, to flourish and have these small businesses that kind of help put the families on the map for us in Chicago. Yeah. And it was a very unique experience growing up and watching Dad hustle. And English was a second language for me, so I learned Spanish first. Obviously, at the household, that's all they spoke, right? And even when I air quote this as kidnapped by my dad when I was young to Mexico. He wanted me to be raised there initially. Even before that, though, the connection of them being able to be there, they were so excited to be American, or to be in America, right? And they look forward to getting their green cards and being citizens. And I remember how excited they were as they spoke about those events. So it did drive this sense of patriotism, which later on in the future drove me to like military and service to the community. But
what made them leave? What made them leave Mexico?
It was that same hope and aspiration for something better and something bigger.
So this is, they probably left, back in the 80s?
Earlier.
Like 60s? 60s,
70s.
60s, 70s. So for people, migration waves from Mexico have come and gone for different reasons, economic reasons, people looking for a better life, people just seeing stories of people making it on the U.S. side. And recently, a lot of those waves have come from people that are just completely there's no safety to be guaranteed in some of these communities to move up there. But your parents basically were looking to create a better future for you.
Yeah, I think the safety aspect wasn't that big then. I think it was the wave of reform, like, hey, let's go to this America, this new place, let's do cool stuff. I think it was still like very hippie-esque, right? Big hair. All that fun stuff that the 70s and 80s were then going to produce for them in America. But the way they told the stories was they were looking to do something better, something bigger, so that they can then help the family. And it's that same story, right? You come here to do better, to bring everybody else, or to send back.
To send back, yeah.
And so on my mom's side, so both accomplished their goal. Mom accomplished the goal of helping send things back, and Dad did the opposite. He brought his family here, his brothers and sisters, and he helped them launch businesses. Okay. So everything that he established, he helped them establish, which is where I kind of get my attitude of like, bring everybody up.
Yeah. Pull people up.
If you pull people up, then everybody's pulling each other up, and nobody's being drugged down by the one guy you're looking at as like a nuance.
Yeah.
So very cool that they both accomplished their goals. And again, their happiness.
So they crossed and they ended up in Chicago. Right. Chicago has a giant Mexican community. Massive Mexican community. Some of the first classes I did myself like when I came as an immigrant as well to the U.S. 5 years ago. Some of my first classes were out in Chicago, and I was surprised about how at home I felt in some of these communities. It's basically little Mexico, right? So you work at your parents are immigrants. They work. The whole aspect of them earning their citizenship,
dude.
What was that? Witnessing that. I mean, you were born there, but witnessing them going through that process. I mean, I went through that process. I'm going through that process myself. I'm a permitted resident. I'm going after my citizenship. Yeah. But do you remember them achieving that?
I remember parts of it, not as much as I wish now. And having this conversation again, I love doing these engaging little things with people of like minds, because I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna like Q&A the shit out of my parents. Like, tell me everything, right? Everything that I've missed that I don't have in my memory bank of their move here and all the things that they did to be comfortable where they are now. But I remember them being excited about it. I remember them bragging to their siblings, and then offering advice on how they're going to help them now that they've done it. Yeah. So again, examples of constantly trying to uplift others, which is really cool, right? In a, I don't want to call it a ghetto, because it's not the ghetto that we imagine now. It was super low income, and it was like, I remember my babysitter, her and her husband, they were retired, but they were financially not doing well, but they would trade babysitting hours for groceries.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how they babysit us. They babysit us, and my mom would bring a carton of eggs and some hot dogs that they can chop up.
This is Chicago, by the way.
It's in Chicago.
We're in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's a Mexican community in Chicago. Yeah.
Or they would bring a pack of tortillas one day, and some tomatillos for some salsa the next day.
Bartering.
And it was a barter system for babysitting. It was freaking rad. And I remember learning to eat out of sartenes, the pans, because there were no dishes. Like the guys, they didn't. It was a really interesting growing up. But again, the idea that they were so happy to become citizens that they wanted to bring everybody along, and their pride led to like this pride in country. They were proud of Mexico. They were proud to be Mexican.
Yeah.
But they were also proud to be in America, and that the struggle wasn't the way the struggle was for people who didn't want to work. Because that was a big thing in the communities too. You had your lazy drinkers and smokers who didn't do shit. They
were after the government money.
Yes, and then you had the hard workers and hard chargers, and then that was always the clash, right? You'd come home and be like, "Ahí está Pepe hanging out drunk again."
Yeah.
When he's 25 and he could be hustling harder than us, you know.
Now, witnessing your immigrant parents achieving their dreams, and basically, I think in a lot of ways we are our parents' wildest dreams.
Yeah.
In a way, if we are true to ourselves, that's who we want to be. Our parents' wildest dreams. Seeing their joy and pride of becoming Americans, basically. Yeah. What did that mean to you as both being that whole aspect of your Mexicano heritage, but there's this concept of being an American,
Yeah.
right? That is now you're born into it.
Yeah.
What is that like? What is that that split in you like?
So it's comforting and it's exciting because there comes this like ultra sense of purpose almost, right? And like you said, like if we're our parents' wildest dreams and they were so proud to become American, and it's funny that you put it in that phrasing. I was like, oh shit. So what I was actually doing now, like using that as an anchor of understanding into their dreams. If they were so proud to be American, what can I do to one up how proud they were to become Americans? Yeah. And that's kind of, again, it leads us to the future with the military, where as soon as I started to catch on to like their patriotism, their love for the country, I was like, well, how can I make it even better? What'll make you more proud of America than an American-born son in the military, right? Because I saw how the Americans, the white America or the non-immigrant Americans, how much they valued service at that time. Yeah. It was like this thing.
Yeah.
Like,
also, people need to realize Mexicans are very conservative,
big time,
very conservative, and again, a lot of us when we go into the U.S., military fits.
Yeah,
it fits some of the aspects of how we come up and how we bring people up. Well, so you saw in the military an opportunity to basically make them proud, and also to find your own way.
Well, I was kind of, to go back then, right? I was like, I wasn't able to find how to make them proud normally. Like I was kind of a bad kid.
You're not gonna show up with be valedictorian. Or you're not gonna do any of that. No,
none of that. My sister was the smarter one. Not that I wasn't smart, because school was easy, and I think that's why I brushed it off.
Yeah.
So I was able to achieve the grades that I wanted, and then I was just kind of like, meh, this isn't enough. I'm gonna go fuck around and do some other shit somewhere else, right? And that's kind of where all the illegal stuff started happening, which is great learning experience.
When you say illegal stuff, like when you were a teenager, like your late teens?
Early teens, not even late teens, early teens. Again, a very Mexican community, right? And
was there a gang culture out there?
There was. The gang culture, it was very protective at the time. So like even the parents that didn't have kids in gangs, they would let you be around them. But when shit got hot, like you started hearing screeching tires and things like that,
and bring you in.
They were like, all right, you need to come inside, or don't be around, these dudes when this is going on. And so they would bring you to the house, or they'd call you to the front, and then they'd unleash you again.
So like here in Tijuana growing up, my mom would walk around and he would get some of the cholos in the community and say, hey, watch out for my kid.
Yes.
You would get some of that stuff over there?
Yeah. Because
they're bad guys?
Yeah.
But they're part of the community, though. Like,
right.
Hey, watch out for my kid.
Yep.
Don't mess with him. Watch out.
And that was the case, man. There was people looking out for each other, and it was very much, I said it somewhere, it was very much West Side Story, but Mexican version, right? Mom yelling from the third floor with a spatula, right? Yeah. And then another mom echoing it down. And then finally, one of the street dudes like, "Hey man, your mom's calling. Get out of here." It was a very interesting time, but it was cool at that age. So I wasn't gonna make them proud doing street level shit, right?
Yeah, you weren't
gonna being a little scandalous, a little shitbag.
So what type of shit would you get into?
Dude, and for not being a gun city, guns are like the biggest thing in Chicago. Right, in all the communities.
There's guns everywhere, basically.
Everywhere, and everyone has one, and it's not even like frowned upon in the gangs, right? Like
back then, was it about what was the violence about? Just territory?
It was all territory. It wasn't even drugs. It was all muscling to own like pieces of land, right? Okay. And they didn't fucking own shit, but they were fighting for it. These turf wars, right? And it was all about like tough guy energy. The drugs weren't really a prevalent thing because there wasn't a lot of drug use in our community.
And the drugs that were there, what type of drugs are we talking about?
It was probably cannabis the most, right?
Weed.
It was weed. That was what the turf wars were for. It was weed back then, man. In the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah.
Very different
weed
than what it is now.
Mellow out.
Yeah.
So this place, guns. We're talking about what year was this? Like around what year were you?
Early 90s, man. I was already like.
So early 90s gun violence in the communities you were in Chicago. So it's been happening. It's been going on for years, basically. Man, is what we're saying.
Yeah,
it's just changing. The faces behind the guns, or the faces behind the guns and the violence, just change.
Yeah, and here's a little secret into Chicago violence. Not so much now. Now it's sporadic, and you don't know where the violence is going to come from.
Yeah.
Before, the violence was isolated. It was in pockets and neighborhoods. right? So it really didn't affect downtown. It didn't affect the more affluent areas. It was more in 1 by 1 block radius, like where two gangs had intersecting lines of territory.
Yeah.
Or there was a crossover as to who was going to control the territory for sales, right?
Yeah.
So the violence was very isolated, but obviously the news highlights exactly what they need to highlight. So it looks like all of Chicago is burning down, which now it is. Now everybody that I know that's on the force there is like, dude, there's nothing we can do. Like this is out of control.
It's uncontainable.
Yeah, now it's lost its ability to be controlled. But back then it was just that. It was, and I remember going into these dilapidated houses, man, that smelled like mold. They were like rotting inside, and my buddy's like, all right, man, boost me up. And I would boost him up. And he'd move like a roof panel, and he'd grab a double barrel shotgun with electrical tape on the handle, right? And like sawed off little thing. And then he'd pull out a little revolver, and it was just rusted out and nasty. And he's like, all right, we got to take these for the guys, and we got to dump them in the lake. So we had this very specific spot where we were underage. So if we got caught with him, it wasn't going to do anything. Yeah. And I thought it was fun because I was with my buddy who I thought was my best friend. And to me, he's my best friend. He was a great guy, right? Now I believe he's sitting somewhere doing a life sentence for smoking a couple dudes, which is interesting turn of events, right? Yeah. Two best friends exactly on the same path, one choice. But I remember chucking these guns into the lake and then being like, all right, now what do we do? Oh, well, let's go back and see what else there's to do, right? Yeah. But we used to play, we didn't know it till later, but we were playing lookout games by being agile.
Yeah.
So we would jump roof to roof. Yeah. On the because all the buildings were connected. Yeah. And pretty much they were all flat. Some were pitched, but they were all flat. And we would be on the rooftops playing, and then we'd be like, "Oh, red car coming over here!" And we'd be laughing, and the guys down there were like, "Hey, say that again." Be like, "Yeah, oh, the red car." And they're like, "Oh shit!" And they would scatter. Yeah. So it was like we were providing like surveillance, not knowing we were doing it.
Gavilanes, punteros, like they have here. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And
kids,
dude, and it think of it now as like, holy crap. With maturity, do you know, I consider it like, would I go back and relive all those things? I'm like, absolutely, I have to.
It's formative.
Because it changes who you are today. Yeah. Like, it absolutely does.
So, you know, you have this concept of experience, you know, and people always want, you know, I don't know what people, sometimes they ask me about my experience and what I went through. And I went through some horrible negative shit. I did some negative stuff,
right?
Bad things. I think it's part of the process for people. Not everybody, of course. And like you say, your best friend didn't survive that. Yeah. You know, well, he survived it, but he went down a darker path.
Yeah, he's surviving in a different way.
What was the fork in the road for you that led you off that path?
So I would have probably stayed there. It wasn't even my decision. It was my mom and her next marriage. Right, my parents had split, and they were kind of splitting custody. They weren't far from each other, but they were far enough that you had to take a ride to go to dad's house or mom. But they were still both on the south side, both Mexican neighborhoods. But the community my dad went to was 50-50. It was Mexican and it was Polacks.
Okay.
And that was a cool dynamic, man. I'll tell you, that's a whole nother series of like fighting the white guys instead of the black guys now, right? And that's what the area with mom was like that. We would fight the black dudes and they would beat our ass and we would beat their ass. But it was never like hatred. It was just like, got you slipping, motherfucker. Here we go, right? 2-on-1, 1-on-2, 3-on-4. Like, we would all just get together and just beat the shit out of each other. And I wasn't the best fighter, but I was down to fucking fight, which was fucking fun to me, right? So even since then, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to be the best fighter, but I'm definitely going to be doing this. And it was exciting and it was fun. But the big change came when she remarried and we moved to the north side of Chicago. That changed everything. That was more gentrified. There was more non-Mexicans. And it was a combination of a better community, more opportunities, more work for everybody. And people kind of they kept to themselves differently. Yeah. So it wasn't like how everybody would hang out outside.
Everybody was
down
inside.
The block. Everybody was inside doing their own thing. Yeah. So it changed the opportunity. It changed everything that we were doing. So when we moved there, that's kind of when I was able to shift focus from doing all the dumb shit to actually not really. It went from gun stuff to drugs. And I remember, man, I still remember seeing some of the most beautiful cocaine I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Like scaly, green, yellow. It like when you moved it in the light, it had scales. It was, God, it was the. I'm not saying it to like romanticize it or make it glorified, but I've never seen
that quality
ever.
There's historically been a pipeline from Sinaloa straight to Chicago for decades. So. Makes sense.
And I remember a little bit of time, right? We won't spend too much time talking about that, but I remember the trocas blindadas coming out beautiful, right? Really well paint jobs, all this badass shit. And that's how we would get stuff. So the connection was easy to make, right? And I've heard you talk about Chicago a lot, and there is that connection, man. Yeah. But I remember this, it was pristine and the most beautiful. So for a little bit of time, that was a good source of income and spending. And there's nothing to show for it. Right, because you get it, you spend, it's gone, and it's over. Yeah. And I think that's the design of that, right? Yeah. So if you do have kind of a diminishing mindset where you're just going to kind of stay there, then it's easy for them to keep you as like a foot soldier, right? Yeah. Until you take the fall for some shit.
Yeah, you stay on until you're not useful anymore.
Yep. And so for me, it was a little bit of that. It was a little bit of still having fun at school. Sports, getting into punk rock, so I went straight from Mexican music to gangster rap to punk rock.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, my playlist is Chileno, and then we'll go listen to some Exploited,
For sure, man. It bounced back and forth depending on who you were with. And then hormones kind of kicked in, and I was hightailing it after Las Güeritas. All the white girls that I could find. So this is where the rock music came in, right? So
I think that's dangerous. That's dangerous,
dude.
Peligroso.
It was a turning point, the testosterone drop, or the hormone change, and so then that started to chase me into different avenues, right? Hanging out with more of the punk rock kids because that's where all the white girls were. There was no white girls in the banda music. No. There was no white girls in gangster rap, right? That was the black girls and the Hispanic girls. But so that led me in one direction, and then for a long time, a lot of bad decisions were because of white girls.
So, I mean, peligroso. You have this place where you're at. You're experiencing basically a multicultural youth in Chicago. Chicago is walking towards what it is now, back when you were young, basically. Right. What makes you get out? What makes you figure out a way out of that? When I say get out, I mean, what makes you like find a path through the military? So even as a kid, right, and I go back to this being a kid playing with the 2 G.I. Joes that I was able to get as a kid, and I think which ones were they?
I think I still have them.
Which
Destro and the Silverhead dude.
Destro's the Silverhead dude,
yes.
Arms dealer.
Who was the dude with the boonie hat?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He had a croc. Was it the dude that had like a?
He had a tank top. Yeah. Camel pants and the hat. So Destro's silver dude, and then that guy.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. I have no idea. I can't think that much of a nerd.
Yeah, I get asked all this. I should probably know that because they're like, "Oh, what were your 2 favorite Joes?" And Destro was for sure.
Snake Eyes, by the way, that's my favorite one. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, but Storm Shadow more. That was my.
Yeah. Who is the white one?
A Storm Shadow.
Storm Shadow, okay.
The guy that would hit the tank in various parts and split it all in half, man. That guy, that's the shit for me.
Hell yeah. Very sapper.
So you're growing up watching G.I. Joe.
Yeah, and because of dude, it's cool because one's a good guy, one's a bad guy.
Yeah, of course.
So that's all we could get. I could get 2, so I picked a good guy and a bad guy, and that whole childhood was the duality. Which way do I want to go?
Which way do you want to go? I mean, like you say, your best friend went on one, basically split off.
Man, I never put that together, but those 2 G.I. Joes were me and my buddy, and we both chose our paths. Yeah, fucking wild.
You decided to go into the military.
Yes. So again, it was all this like I never wanted to be a cop, but I wanted to be a soldier. Okay. So the soldier thing,
why not a cop?
Because I ran from the cops.
Of course.
I was like, fuck these motherfuckers, right? You can't catch me, mother.
Yeah, dude, I ran from the cops when I used to skateboard and shit like that. And fuck the police, run from the cops, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I was like, cop shit's stupid, right? And I saw the way they interacted. And it was at a time where policing was tough. Yeah. So people didn't like them, but they respected them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like now. It was different. They interact with you. As soon as you lipped off, fuck off, dude. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
You're going to get it. And now you can talk shit and throw the middle finger and throw rocks at him. It's very different.
Yeah.
So then there was still this culture of respect and authority, and they knew it, right?
Yeah.
They yielded it well. So I never wanted to be a cop. I was like, yeah, this is stupid. Fuck that shit. And so the military came about post 9/11, right? And again, that 9/11 event created a sense of, it invigorated patriotism.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you fuck with us, right? And whether it's all a ploy to run the industrial machine, right?
We are at a point in history, I think, that where most of us know that a lot of the stuff that was behind that push is bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, it's safe to say, you know.
For sure.
But
fuck it, dude, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
That shit was awesome.
Well, I mean, it basically, I think it was a call to adventure for a lot of people.
100%.
You know,
100%.
So many of my friends that are kind of around the same age group that we are, that was their origin point. Even, I mean, I did not participate in the war on terror, but the 9/11 attacks basically put the economy in the toilet, which made me have to
changed the world, man.
It made me have to look for work, and all I could do was go into government work.
Yeah.
9/11 happens. You start seeing a lot of people of your same age group maybe kind of like figuring things out, people joining. Was there anybody influential specifically that made you kind of like follow that path?
Not really, man.
Or was it just you're like, well, I guess
yeah.
I guess we're gonna go.
There was nobody. So remember early on, I mentioned like how the country was all about soldiers, but it wasn't as big because in the in the childhood there was nothing really going on as far as conflicts go. I had some loose ends to wrap up as far as relationships, business that I was trying to figure out at that age right before I joined the military, and I wrapped those up. And in that time frame, that year post 9/11, that year that happened, I was like. So 9/11 and then 2003 was the invasion, right? That's when the war popped.
Yeah.
And so 2004-ish, I'm cleaning up all this stuff, and I get reinvigorated with patriotism for military service. I always loved the country. That's never going to change. But the idea of serving the country, right? And I started to see the dudes who had joined. I had a few friends who had joined, not close friends, but like extended families and friends. And everyone was like, oh, look at them. They're so fun. I was like, fuck yeah, we're doing this shit. Yeah. And we're at war. Like, now's the time to do something, right? If we're going to do this, we're going to do this now. And that's what led me to join. I joined. I got dicked around, man. These fucking recruiters, man. If I ever run into you guys, I'm going to fuck you up. just so you're aware. Shit, fuckers. No, all in good fun. I wanted to do the Marines first, right? Because the fucking Marine Corps, right?
Yeah.
And I had some tattoos that I couldn't get rid of. And I went and got lasered and shit, and they're like, oh, no, we can't take you anyway, so you got this other tattoo. I was like, well, I'm not going to afford another laser removal was more expensive at the time.
Were these tattoos gang-related is what they were
One
worried
of them
about?
was, yeah.
Okay.
Well, one of them was. I had to get it removed, and I was like, fuck it, whatever. It didn't matter, because everybody had blessed off on the military service. Like, that's how patriotic even the gang members were. Yeah. Like, all right, man, go do your shit.
Yeah.
You don't owe us anything. Yeah. Carry on.
It's fascinating that now, I mean, recruitment as it is now, I mean, they'll take
anybody. You can go there with face tattoos and shit, and they'll take you. I'm like, fuck.
It's a pretty fascinating change.
So the Marines didn't want me because of the tattoos, and the Army guys next door were like, fuck, we'll take you. We'll take you right now. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? They didn't tell me about the potentials for like rank or bonuses or anything that I can get that would help me out, right, a little bit. Yeah. They were just like, yep, sign right here, motherfucker. 4 months later, boom, I'm on a fucking airplane and then a bus ride to start basic training. And then that kicked off from there. I was in training, and then it was maybe a year before our first deployment. So then we launched. And
so you went from this is what I want to do a year until you were
actively training for what I wanted.
Yeah. Okay. You go through basic.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Dude,
I mean, I don't know.
Basic training was fucking rad. Okay. Right? Because I came from a very unstructured lifestyle.
That's what I'm asking. You know, like this is you're doing your own shit, and all of a sudden you're somewhere where people are telling you what to do and screaming.
Everything. How to brush your teeth, how to shave your fucking face, right? Everything is being taught to you from scratch and molding. It's all molding.
Yeah.
But it's all molding for the greater good. It's like to make people that can follow directions, right? Still think for yourself, but follow directions was the important part. And how can we make you follow the stupidest directions so that when something does make sense, you don't question it? And I think that's the programming. Like, you're going to do the dumbest shit. You're going to brush your teeth backwards because I said so. And you're like, that's the dumbest thing ever. But then they're like, all right, check it out. That hill's got bad dudes. This is how we're going to attack. And you're like, yes, that makes sense. Yeah. And all of it is connected, man. The psychology of training soldiers is amazing. And I think it costs something like 90 to 100,000 per soldier. US dollars to get them through basic training and spun up to be somewhat effective, right? And
it's an investment.
It's a huge investment. There was 40 of us, 4 companies of 40 dudes, like one go. And then there's 100 buildings full of these motherfuckers, right? So basic was fun for me because it was the structure I never had. I don't know if I needed it or not, but it felt right.
So, like, that's interesting you say that. Like, for me, when I went through my own training, I went through paramilitary training.
Right.
The people that trained us were the GAFES. Basically, the guys that turned into the Zetas were the guys that trained us, right? Yeah. So they said, pan y verga, and no hay pan, the bread and dick, and there's no bread, But I remember when I was going through that training and having them basically treat us like dog shit.
Yeah.
And, waking up, marching, fucking running around, doing all this shit structure. There was a masochistic thing in me that was like, holy shit, I've been needing this in my whole life. I've never had this before. It gave me I felt like I was being whittled down to my basic components.
Yeah. And there's something special about that, right? To be able to know yourself that far, that low, right?
Yeah.
And then to come back out of it. It's like, man,
it's a death.
Yeah,
it's a death in
absolutely.
a way. So whoever you were before that training was, you die. Yep. And you become something else.
Yeah,
you go through that basic training, and are you excited to is everybody there like, let's go?
Yeah. So
what is the energy like?
So the energy was definitely big dick. We're going to fucking fight. We want to fight because we enlisted into a combat arms job. Okay. Right? You signed up and you knew you were going to fucking do some shit because it's part of what you signed. Like, you could have been a mechanic, right? Infantry, you could have done this or that. You get to choose with the Army for the most part, right? Yeah. Based on your scores. And I chose Cavalry Scout. So it's like reconnaissance, small unit tactic stuff. We get made fun of by the infantry a lot, and we make fun of the infantry a lot. It's this back and forth-ish. And so I knew what I was signing up for. I knew what I was going to do. I knew what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted that. Like, this is what we're doing. I already kind of did it at home, but now let's do it with some real motherfuckers, right? Like, let's test the metal now. And so we were all excited. We were pumped for it. I knew right when I got assigned to the 3rd ID, Fort Stewart, that we were going to deploy because they're the constant deploying. They go for a year, come back for a year, go for a year, come back for a year. So they're like the cycling train. So as soon as I got assigned there, I was like, hell yeah. Sooner or later, we're going, right? And the energy was high because of everyone understanding why they signed up. Pretty much that was the consensus. Like, we want to serve, motivation. We want to go fight, we want to do this shit. So everybody was on the same page, which was fucking rad. Which I can't imagine what it's like now where nobody has a purpose.
Yeah, well, mind you, people, you were in a perspective, you weren't hearing the things we know now from there or the politics or the things that were found out later. You were just, they fucked with us. We're going to go, we're going to go. Payback is basically retribution was probably at the core of most people's motivations back then.
Fueled by revenge.
I mean, retribution. There's something to be said about it. Some people don't like it, but retribution was motivating you guys. Were you not hearing anything coming back from people that were coming back?
If we weren't fucking listening because we were on our path. You were blind. And I'll be fucking honest right now, and my girl will probably hate that I say this shit. If another fucking war kicked off and we had to go, I'd fucking go. Like, it's one of those things because you're going to need real people right now, right? Not the batch of what we currently have available. There are some good dudes, but you're going to want the old crusty dudes to come back and help a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what saved us.
Yeah.
Post 9/11, the guys coming back started to save the guys that were then going on their 3rd, 4th trip. Yeah. There's something to be said for that collection of information, right? The warrior tales.
You can't replace that.
You can't.
You can't replace an individual that goes out there, experiences, and even training is what it is.
Sure.
But it doesn't approach experience.
Yeah. All the tactics changed.
Yeah.
All the tactics changed because we were training to fight jungle warfare or Russia. Those were the 2 models we had in training when I was in. Yeah. And then we start fighting a completely different animal in a completely different terrain, right? And that's why it took so long for us to get the right vehicles in place and have better tactics. Adjust to the battlefield. But then you're fighting, it was unconventional the whole fucking time. There was no dudes in uniforms. It was all dudes in tank tops and T-shirts, and you didn't know who the fuck was what. And it was just it was an interesting experience that I think and again, she's probably not gonna like that, but if something kicked off, I'd probably go again and do it, knowing that it's all fucked up. I don't think it was that bad. I think the preservation of life for our guys was cool. The brotherhood you build, you'll end up wanting to do it for them.
So that's an interesting thing that I hear a lot echoed when a lot of people that go through that process. People that have never gone to war or that have never been in conflict like that will say, well, you're fighting for the government, you're fighting for the military-industrial complex, and they'll have all these opinions around that, which are valid. But people that are actually on that front line, they don't give a shit about any of that. You're fighting for survival with people around you. You're fucking splitting a Snickers bar with the dude that's on fire watch with you. You are living for each other. Yeah. And every single fucking thing you do there matters. Everything. And I think that is missed. People that have never experienced that won't get it.
Yeah. Like, it's something super fucking simple, right? Like, here we do it for fitness reasons, like hydrating and drinking plenty of water. Dude, if you don't hydrate, your balance is off. Your body it moves slower. It's not efficient. So we would hydrate to make sure we were ready for the next mission. Like, we would force hydrate, not because it's a thing, it's mandatory, right? But you would look at your guys and you're like, fuck, if I can't run to grab that dude or move that dude, I'm failing him. Yeah. So you start doing things. And again, this is like that. You start caring about others more than yourself. And then you hope that they care about you the way you care about them. And then it's just this fucking net of love, right? Love and war. Yeah. And it's like, I thought it was amazing. And I think
there's an honesty to that. You know, you know that in environments like that, a fucking narcissistic personality won't survive. Right. You know? Yeah. So even in that way, you're safe from it in a way. You know?
It does weed out certain personalities because nobody wants them around.
Exactly. Yeah. But now then you get out of it, and I think that's what a lot of us that come out of some of these conflicts or come out of some of these experiences and have a struggle to kind of adjust to. You know.
Yeah, to reset.
But so you go out there, you do the work. What was that like? I mean, the going from dealing, doing your shit, running around some hot topic chicks, to being out there in a place where nobody speaks the same language. People are fighting for their land, basically, and for their interest and local interest. You are the. I mean, really, if we're honest and we think about things, I mean, I'm not going to talk about politics or anything like that, but you were the villains in their story.
Absolutely.
Villainy is a weird thing to kind of think about in that context, but you're a villain there. You're an invading force. You're a villain. You are doing things for your own people, which in a lot of ways is admirable and respectable. Yeah. But the people there don't want you. Some of the people there will not want you there.
Man, you can't even fucking blame them because half of them, or the majority of them, their land was being used as the playing ground. Yeah. But they didn't consent to it, and they weren't a part of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we had all these fucking war fighters from the opposite side coming in to fight in this land, but the locals weren't part of it. Yeah. They would either have to choose whose side they were on, right? And we kind of forced it on them too. But they didn't want anything to do with it. Most of them tried to carry on with their lives like everyday stuff until something fucking blew up in their front yard, Yeah. Then they were like, fuck. And if it was our fault, now we made enemies. Yeah. If it was the other dude's fault, well, now we have allies. So it was always a give and take constantly depending on the situation. So it was one incident away with every person in that community from having a friend or an ally. Most of them were indifferent. Yeah. We ended up playing this game where we would pay off certain areas because we started to find out that the bad dudes were paying them to feed them information on our route management, where we were going, all those things, timing of things. And so we ended up just covering the cost. Like, well, fuck, if they're paying you, we'll pay you more. Yeah. Right? There's different ways to handle that battlefield.
You go through that experience. Now, what ends it, though? Like, what ends that experience for you? Like, how is that concluded for you?
Like getting out or like leaving the war scene?
Yeah, leaving that war scene.
Dude, leaving... So it's not over yet. It's still going on in my mind. I'm just kidding. Kind of, right? It always lives there.
Time is a flat circle. Yeah. You're there. You're here.
Yeah. I was there just now. In my mind, I was like, fuck,
I know you're there.
Yeah. I was there today when we were driving around.
I remember you were driving around Tijuana. You're looking around. This reminds me of... Yeah.
Yeah, dude, the pastel colors, the weird shaped buildings that we were making
no
fun
building
of.
code.
Yeah.
No building codes at all.
And the wrought iron fences, man.
Yeah.
And,
They bring you back to some of those moments.
yeah. And so anytime I'm around those little environments, like even the Mexican areas of Chicago or even in Phoenix, it triggers some stuff, right? It's not negative anymore. It took me about 5-6 years to get past some of the trauma where I could be normal with people.
Let's I don't want to probe or poke.
I don't care.
But what was some of the damage or trauma that you got out there? As far as, what was taken from you? I guess I never thought of what was taken from me. For me,
I know what you're saying.
For me, there's an amputation in violence.
Yes.
So can you point to what was amputated?
So the violence was the same, man, just with a different fucking face, right?
Yeah.
It was a different culture, but the violence was the same. Dudes getting shot in the fucking face on the neighborhoods where we grew up, and dudes getting shot in the face by us.
Yeah.
So the violence was, it fed more shit that I was bottling up and didn't know how to
it was being
process.
It was being piled into the back room, basically.
Yeah. And
I'll sort it out later.
Yeah, and it's still kind of like that. Like little things will pop up and I'll figure it out. But I know that the most damage that it did is for a little bit of time, I had this incredible fucking ego, but it was like rage. And so I would be mad at shit for no fucking reason. I didn't know why.
Okay.
And it fucked a lot of relationships. It fucked up.
Was that anger related to thinking that people didn't understand, or
it was? So it was. People don't understand. People are ungrateful. They didn't care the shit that I had to go through for them, right? And this is early stages. Right? After you process this shit, later on, you're like, it doesn't fucking matter because I did it for me and the dudes. I didn't do it for you to be grateful to me for, right? Like the exterior people, the loss of dudes, which that always sucks. And we lost 2 dudes in our rotations.
No, I don't want.
No.
You lost these 2 dudes. I've lost a few people myself working. When you lost them, was there time to mourn, or was it just run?
Dude, it was right on to the next thing.
Right on to the next thing.
One of them came to us, and it all happened. We tried to contain the situation, but the other one was the one that'll forever stand out. And I said this to my girl once. We're cooking some carne asada, and meat smells like meat on the grill, right?
Yes,
human or fucking animal.
I know. Yeah.
And the guy that we lost, we were part of the recovery team, right? So we were all in different vehicles. They hit a small IED. It set the back truck on fire, and the doors shut. We couldn't get the back doors open. The other guys got out. And that was the platoon sergeant's vehicle. So it had all the grenades, extra fucking ammo. He was our supply line, right? He would run up to the trucks and bring supplies while we created this circle of protection for whatever we were doing. And that vehicle caught on fire. And the dude in the back, right? Rest his soul, the little homie's up there doing his thing. But I think about him all the time. I wasn't close to him the way some of the other guys were.
Yeah.
But there was this weird moment before we deployed that for some reason we were together.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, and he was super excited. And I have a photo with him.
Yeah.
And I don't have photos with anybody else.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. I don't know if it's just coincidence, right? But I have a photo with him right before we deploy, and I took no photos with anybody else that day or at all.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I have one photo with this dude, which is, again, it's just interesting. But so he gets stuck and he's fucking screaming, and you can hear some chatter over the radios, and we try to do something about it. Then everything starts cooking off inside the truck.
There's no way.
So there's nothing we can do, because now if you open those doors, shit starts blasting out, and whoever's in front of it's fucked, right? And so that goes down. The whole vehicle gets fucking totaled. Security moves around. We secure the area because we don't want them to come and take stuff. Right?
Of course.
And then in the evening, so then we're still high guard, high security, right? And as soon as it got dark, the commander came out, jumped into our truck, and he's like, let's go. We're recovering the body now.
Okay.
So we go out there in the cover of night, right? Nods on, shit's all over the place. We pull up, we pull the truck in, start pry barring everything, get it all cranked up and open. And that wave of, you can smell other stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nothing smells the same as fucking flesh.
Burning human flesh and hair smells a very specific way and will be with you forever.
Yeah. And so we move the parts, and if you're watching from the outside in, pieces kind of fall apart. Nothing stays together because the tendons and ligaments all fucking char up, right? Except for what's stuck to like clothes. I think like the fat melted into things. It was just chunks of stuff. Gets put in the bag. The bag gets put in the back of our truck, right? I jump in, we drive everything out. We took the things that were sensitive, the radio and the body, the American body, and we drive back, and the whole truck just smells like meat, right? And it's fucking crazy that at the same time that you know this is the body of a human friend of yours, you haven't eaten in like 7 or 8 fucking hours, you're hungry as fucking thirsty, your brain...
Yeah, it goes back and forth.
It goes back and forth with I'm hungry, I know this smell, and then you start getting sad and you're like, fuck, that's my dude. I'm not thinking of him like food.
Yeah.
But the brain is such an interesting fucking thing that it was this back and forth, and I think I fucked myself in that moment for the future, because now every time I cook out or do anything,
you think
that first moment that I smell the fucking meat, I'm like, fuck.
It comes back to that.
That one moment where we were overseas in this fucking desert, scooping this body up, and...
From the time that happened, you delivered the body. Was there, how much time do you have to talk about it?
0.
How much? 0. You're back.
We
We're
dropped
back out.
We pulled the body out, right? Not drop it because we were very careful with our people once they were. It was like a ceremonial thing for us to recover. I was like, fuck, let's go. I'm going with, right? Yeah. We recovered the body, we bring it back. And then that was they cut us off from anything related to that incident. They're like, cool, man, go shower up. Get something to eat, get something to drink, go talk to whoever's in charge to get you on your next thing. And it was right back to it.
Yeah.
So it was no downtime, no conversations were had. The second one was almost easier.
After this experience, the second one was easier.
It was easier because you kind of started to expect certain things, because you can hear when other people got fucked up, right? Because the major net be like, oh, somebody got blown up over here, and somebody got this over here and over there and over here and over there. So it's constantly, they're talking about these things.
And when they're talking about that, are you thinking about that yourself? As like, well, maybe I'm gonna get this shit done to me today. Maybe tomorrow. It's the end. Is death basically on your mind?
Early it was, and then you're just like, let's fucking do this shit.
Yeah.
Who cares, right? And then, man, I remember this super motivational speech from one of the leaders that came through, and he didn't push the idea of like dying for your country's this patriotism thing, right? But because he didn't want anybody to get hurt, but it was kind of the flip, like make everybody pay, but if you die, you will be a fucking hero to the land. So we did have this sense of like, well, if I get fucked up, imagine times 10 my mom's smile on her face. Obviously she's going to be sad, but the feeling of like my son did something crazy for this country, right? Like gave his life. That was like the ultimate sacrifice. Like that's kind of what was embedded in us midway through. We're like, we're going to stick this through, and if we die, we're fucking done, but it's awesome and patriotic, right? Crazy way to fucking think about things.
It is,
but it kept us motivated.
Yeah, well, again, it's crazy, but it's necessary to survive that experience. That
it was
moment,
a survival mindset.
Again, it may seem illogical or completely incomprehensible for somebody to think about it. Like, that's stupid. That's idiotic. Why would you do that shit?
Yeah.
It's survival.
Yeah.
It's survival. You can't fucking survive without that type of thought process.
For sure.
And I think it's been the true, like, since wars were invented. How many times did you deploy out there?
I did one 15-month rotation.
Okay.
Right? And I didn't want to leave, so I stayed those extra 3 months. It's 12 months typically. And so for those 12 months, I came home for like a week and then went back. And then when everybody's cycling back to come home, I was like, I'm not done, guys. Like, let's stay a little longer. So I stayed for the rear detachment and basically spent the next 3 months like just hanging out, organizing stuff, and then I would come back at the end of those 3 months. So it was
like, you saying that, what were you avoiding back home?
everything. I had a kid while I was deployed, a relationship.
When you said that, like the extent, I did a lot of that shit myself. I spent like 2 years working and never went on vacation, but usually because I was avoiding shit back home. So you were avoiding...
I was avoiding a relationship that had produced a child, right? And she was born while I was overseas. there was nothing you could do about coming home for that
No,
shit.
of course,
You deal with it how it goes. And I didn't know what the fuck I was gonna do as a dad. You know what I mean?
Your whole being is dedicated to surviving, keeping the people around you surviving, killing the fuckers that are trying to kill you, and your brain is on survival basically, and running. And all of a sudden, no, chill out. No, you're dad now.
Yeah.
So that's what you're running from.
Yeah.
That's what you're avoiding, basically.
That's what I was avoiding. And
which is, think about, I mean, again, people that haven't been through it can't comprehend that.
Yeah.
But it is the mind fuck of it. How, you go from a place where death and visiting death on people to now welcoming life. And welcoming life was more scary to you, or welcoming life was more scary to you than death.
Well, welcoming it and the responsibilities and uncharted territory.
Complete no.
Like how?
Completely no.
I was like, I just got good at this fucking job, and now I have to leave it and go home and do something I'm not good at. I don't know how to do this. So right before leaving completely out of the military, on my way out, that's when they pitched the drill sergeant training. They're like, hey, man, the idea of teaching, passing on stuff that you knew. And I'll make that one short, but basically I signed up for it, went into the reserves, became a drill sergeant, and fell in love with teaching. And that was like the starting point for where I wanted to be, where I am now.
Okay.
Even just being able to teach and share experiences, and the idea that though experiences are valuable, you'll never recreate the event. So you can only learn what you should be doing, right? To deal with conflict, but that event isn't a defining moment in the sense of the tactics applied, because we can't recreate that moment again, right? It won't ever be the same bad guy. It won't ever be the same battlefield. It will never be the same anything. You aren't even the same, right? Decisions I would make when I was 16, when I didn't give a shit about anything, versus decisions I have to make now with 5 kids and a family. Like, they're very different decisions.
Was there any, I don't know, like for me, not being able to go, and now having, now you're, those that can't do teach is something you hear sometimes. Right. I
hear that.
Yeah. But was there any conflict in you with that?
From not doing it anymore and having to switch to teaching?
Yeah.
Not really. I kind of decided that a little bit of some bad leadership was enough for me to be done with the military as a whole. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to stay in the military, how can I be part of the leadership? And that's what that's what drove me in that direction.
Forming people.
Yeah. More of an input on how not to be, right? Don't be a piece of shit and you'll go a long way. And that's why I think I was so attracted to that. And it gave me a chance to be home and start the process of
figuring out how to be a normal human being.
And a dad all at once, back in society. And there is a learning curve, man. I was angry. I was emotional. I didn't understand my feelings at the time. I pushed people away. I broke relationships.
Self-isolation.
Big time. Self-isolation while being with people. Which is even worse, man, because they're with you physically, but you're like shunning them. Yeah. And it feels like I went back, and I didn't ask for forgiveness from these people in my life at those times, because I wanted them to comfort me with their acceptance of my apology. But I apologized because I was truly sorry I was a piece of shit to them.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know. Yeah. I didn't want them to forgive me per se, but I wanted them to know that I forgave myself for how fucked up I was in those relationships. Yeah. And I failed as a dad 1, 2, 3 times, and then I fixed it. And now I'm like living in this powerhouse dad mode, right? Where I still think of all the fucked up shit, but I'm able to fix and focus. Yeah. And it took that long. So I think when guys come out of the military, they go through these traumatic events, there's a fucking process and a time frame. Like, you're not going to come back and just be a good dude. And even if it seems like you're a good dude, you're hiding shit.
That is expected.
It is expected. It's very cultural.
For me, getting out of what I did cost me a marriage, and I was a horrible person coming out of it. Again, unprocessed trauma. Manifests itself in different ways. Self-isolation, pushing people away. The ego aspect of it is an interesting one.
For sure.
people don't understand. People have no clue.
Yeah.
I did this, I did that. Nobody's patting me on the back. There's nothing that type of shit. I guess I remember going through myself. You know, what was your coping mechanism? You know, coming out of that. You know, you go into teaching, into forming people. You know, we all have, you know, our ways. Mine was 3 cans of Foster's, a beer a night to pass myself to completely unconsciously out. That was kind of one of my coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Self-isolation was another one. I actually decided to go through my immigration process as I left because of my, you know, dire situation here. So it was a shit show.
Yeah.
It was a horrible shit show for me. Like, did you have anything like that going on?
I did. I don't know that. I mean, I did the drinking. I did the drug use. I don't know that I necessarily have an addictive personality, but I have more of a understanding when something just isn't good for me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't learn that till after I learned that I sucked at relationships. So it kind of helped me figuring out relationships stuff, helped me figure out myself in a way. And so though I was doing all those things and partying and spending obnoxious amounts of money and trying to impress people in different ways because my military service wasn't enough. So now I'm trying to like showboat with cash and be the macho dude. Jiu-jitsu and fighting and stuff like that was a big cope as well. Like that's where I was good for myself. But around society, I sucked, man. I remember crying, seeing veterans on the side of the road asking for dollars and shit. I'm like, how is this motherfucker on the side of the road? And you know, he did this for his country. I know what that dude did. And, you know, like it was a weird emotional time. But all the coping mechanisms, I think, were in pushing people away to feel something again, to feel the conflict of them saying, fuck it, I'm done with you. And now you're like, well, no, don't leave me, right?
Yeah,
like
it's like you cast a line, and pull them in a little bit, and then you
keep
toss
doing
them
that, and that's damaging to people, man.
Oh, yeah,
and
of course it is.
We do that because we're seeking something that we haven't processed yet.
Yeah,
and that's why I really enjoy getting into like the psychedelics and doing the illicit drugs that everybody's afraid of that liberate your mind and allow you to see things just a little bit differently.
Did you do that like when you came out of it and you started going into this, you know, we'll talk about substances.
Yeah.
Was it something that was introduced to you by other people that were doing these?
So I had done mushrooms and acid trips as a young man, right? Early teens-ish. Or late teens, actually. And so I kind of knew what they were like, but I didn't remember. And they were done differently. You know what I mean? Like drug use as like a teenager, you do it just to fuck around and have fun.
Yeah.
Now you do it kind of with like a purpose and some intent, right? You have some questions that are weighing you down, and I want to explore these questions in a state of mind that isn't normally the way I see things or feel things.
Yeah, there's Terrence McKenna books, and people that have a little bit of internet is telling you a few things about these substances and what they're for. So there's more intention behind it.
Yes.
So basically, the intention change behind your use of these substances.
Yep.
Mushrooms.
Yeah.
What was that like?
And so, dude, it's great. I have a log. I have a log that I kept, and I totally made it fun. And this was an LSD one. I totally had fun with it. Like, I was like, all right, I'm going to log every 30 minutes something of this experience.
Okay.
Right? And I did it kind of like a Star Trek captain's log, right? And it was so much fun. And so for 6 hours, I have these 30-minute intervals of descriptions as to what I was feeling, like the first onset of what it felt like when the body took effect, right?
Yeah.
The body buzz. And then what it felt like when like my eyes started to connect with the dope, right? And how the mind set itself apart from everything. And then seeing myself from outside looking in and inside looking out and all of those things together and in between. And then being able to like, it does feel like it's kind of like blowing you apart, right? You're like expanding out from the skeleton out. But when you're able to like reset it, then you can start pursuing the questions that you're after.
Yeah.
So first you have to learn how to take the drugs, right? And I hate using the word drugs and dope because it sounds negative, but they're just the words for what you're doing, right?
Yeah. It's mind-altering substance.
Mind-altering substances. There you go. And once you learn how to, and this is where people most of the time don't do it more than once or twice because it freaks them out because of the lack of control. We're very control-based animals, right?
Yeah.
Humans.
Yeah. And
learning how to not control the high, because that's not what I'm saying, because that just goes back to control, right?
I think you're having intention behind the use of
the drive. Yeah,
the drive. What are you doing and why?
This is exactly. You set the tone for what you want out of it, and you start to get better. So then I was taking a dose, randomly once every 3 months or something, just to see if I can start toning some things down.
Yeah.
And I sat and I went into those super dark places and I relived a lot lot of that stuff. And I cried a lot. And
was it a time machine for you in a way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something I hear commonly. And again, I went through my own experiences with mushrooms and other substances as well. Like fairly recently, for me, it was like 3-4 years ago that I had to kind of go through that process to kind of check. I didn't have anybody in Mexico showing me any of this. Mushrooms are here in the culture. But we don't have a relationship to drugs like the burgeoning kind of like therapeutic or homeopathic type relationship that the U.S. has with some of these psychoactive drugs now. Very early on, when I started doing my thing, I had some pretty interesting and knowledgeable guides, point the way. And when it came to that, including a very famous podcaster that kind of pointed me the way to some of that therapy myself. Yeah. But I remember seeing the use of hallucinogenics and the use of mushrooms and stuff like that recreationally by some people, and some people being upset that it didn't do what they thought it was going to do for them. And Terrence McKenna has this whole beware of unearned wisdom. Yeah. And I went through it with some people that know, some people that have an ancestry with them that respect it as a medicine, basically. Yeah. So for me, it was a process of walking or approaching it. You prepare your body, you prepare your mind, you fast, you write intention down, and then you take a dose. Yep. Right? From bufo to whatever you want. Mm-hmm. There's always an intention behind it. But for me, I remember having the experience of it being a time machine. Yeah. Having everything that you said, oh, that's behind me. And realizing that I remember this lady that was with me for one of them. She said, like, what are you trying to figure out? Oh, some of these things that are behind me, I want to figure out some of these things. There's no behind you. Yeah. It's you're here, you're there.
It's with you always.
It's with you always. Yeah. The going back in time, figuring some of these things out. You see what you went through. The hallucinogenics themselves obviously provide a clarity to some of these experiences. You can kind of step outside of it and look at it. Yeah. What effects did it have on you afterwards? I mean, what happens to the rage that you experience? What happens to the...
It is all healing. And I know it's tough for the cool guys and the bravado dudes to talk about some of these topics, but it's healing, man. It's healing, and it's reconnecting with parts that you said, like earlier, you lose certain things with high levels of stress and violence. Yeah, you lose connections.
There's an amputation.
Yeah. The amputations happen, and they're stronger emotionally than they are physically for most people, right? They don't know how to deal with it. It's easy and it's not easy because I've spoken to a few buddies who, and this is a sidetrack, who've lost limbs, and their trauma is more severe internally than the actual limb that was lost. Yeah. Right? So I was always like, well, fuck, I didn't lose any fucking limbs, but I know there's a shit ton of stuff inside. So what I mean by healing for me was every time that I took some with the intentions of figuring something out, it healed something that I wasn't necessarily looking for. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So this is where I start to get in better shape physically. Like something happened in that trip that was like, hey, Raul, pay attention to your body. This is the long game. Like, your body can't be suffering the drinking. It can't be suffering shitty food. You got to take care of yourself working out.
I mean, not drinking for me, that was whatever,
Yeah.
We can talk about what it is, whatever voice that is, or whatever the Wi-Fi we access.
Yeah.
Is said like, hey, dude, fucking quit drink.
Yeah.
That, for me, that was kind of started through there.
That's awesome, man.
When I say amputation, for people to kind of get it clearer, parts of you die or get cut away after you go through a violent experience. And we don't know about some of these things because it's not apparent to a lot of us. It's not like cutting a finger off.
Right.
It is losing an innocence. It is losing the ability to say, well, that's never happened to me before. But now that experience defines who you are from now on.
Yeah.
And whoever you were dies. That's what I'm talking about when I say amputation, for people out there kind of like...
like, what's this metaphor?
But so you start building your body up.
It does. One session gives me the boost of confidence to fix my body so that it's a machine that can be used properly, like at its full potential, right? And then another episode, the mental clarity and the seeking of more spiritual connection. So like, I've just restarted reading the Bible. Every like 5 or 6 years, I read it to see if I can pick something new up. But now I'm like excited about it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of it has to do with Jordan Peterson. And he suggested that people read the Reader's Digest version of the Bible.
Yeah.
It's glorious. It reads like a novel. It's not all like choppy and weird. So it reads really cleanly. And I'm excited. I'm excited to go home and read more of it right now when I get back. But the spiritual side of it and the connections, so the mental connection to spirituality and all these things that I was suppressing, right? You had to suppress it for war and combat. Yeah, the whole like, you believe in God and you're gonna survive and do good things. Man, you do a lot of horrible fucking things that the way you were raised is unacceptable in the eyes of God.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to war, all the shit that this is not allowed. You shouldn't do this. Turn the other cheek. Right. All that goes out the window.
Yeah, it's super counter to everything we were raised to believe, right? Especially as Roman Catholics. And so I start healing the mental portion of things, and that's when I start doing like the apologies and the like swallowing my pride and calling people and being like, I totally fucked that shit up. Yeah. You didn't deserve it. Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm better now, but I wasn't better then for you. And it changed that part of me. So then I was excited to explore the mental clarity, right? The release of those things. And I'm thinking of it now, right? It's an amputation, but like fucking reptiles, if you can heal these things, they regrow.
Yeah,
they'll come back. Maybe not the same. Never be the same.
Sometimes stronger.
But they come back in a way where you can help others. And I think that's where I find a lot of my release is in teaching people, sharing everything. I don't just share tactics and fighting. Like, I share stories from failed marriages to being a good dad to cleaning my fucking pool. Like, the dumbest shit that people might not think is important. If I find something that I find a connection to, I share it with people because I want them to have a little bit more than just the normal.
I think it's something that is missing a lot in our modern culture. Again, being formative and forming other people is one thing, but I think in a lot of ways, as far as me witnessing you and going through your process, turning yourself from a war fighter to a survivor to a mentor.
Yeah.
And mentor figures are, they're everywhere. Teachers come in all forms and shapes, you know. And sometimes some of these teachers are not going to be in a classroom talking to you about tactics. They're going to be talking to you about failures and about shit they did and shit they did wrong, and basically guiding you on your own path. That tells you that you can tell some of these people apart. Some people don't want to open up that side of them, and it's viable that people don't want to share some of those aspects. It is a very vulnerable thing to do, you know. Somebody told me this when I was going through my sobriety. A friend of mine is he's a Christian minister, great dude, love him. Jesus comes every single sentence he comes out of his mouth. But he told me, like, Ed, what are you afraid of going through this process? Well, number one, dying. Stop drinking. That'll kill you. But the second one was judgment.
Huh.
I was afraid of what people were going to say about me and my experience. They're going to say I'm weak. They're going to say I'm whatever. And he said, "Man, be open with it.
Who cares?
You can't pickpocket a naked man."
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember just kind of sharing some of that stuff openly for the first time and seeing the effect it had on people. And instead of scorn, which I did get some of it,
Of course.
but instead of that, I got DMs constantly to this day. People starting off on their own process.
Well, your liberation liberates others. Like
Yeah.
your ability to do that will help others do that don't have the same strength, right?
I mean, it's I show people how to get out restraints of all kinds.
Right. Yeah. This is just another one.
So, you exit the instruction side and you became a drill sergeant basically for a bit. You go through your process of healing and building your body up and stuff like that. What part of that do you go into law enforcement?
So after some of those points, right?
Yeah.
Which is tricky, right? Because
Yeah.
law enforcement, polygraphs, you can't have.
Dude, I completely understand. I completely understand. They don't want people that will actually, be good at that job. So,
They don't. Again, they want people they can. I use the word rely on, not manipulate, because it sounds better for them. They can rely on to do what they ask, and it's okay. I mean, I get it. Right?
We're out. We're out.
It doesn't matter now.
We're out.
But I remember having to take a polygraph, and I mean, some people fail those, some people don't. Basically, to me, if it was never documented, it never happened. So there's no need to.
Of course.
Profess the events. So it was whatever. And so I take the polygraph. I get into the police department. I never wanted to be a cop. I tell this story just loosely because I didn't. I was with the same person that I was with when I deployed and had the child with. And she was an officer. And she had filled out the application for me and did all that stuff. And I was like, okay.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
So she basically wanted me to come back because I was already on contracting stuff. So I was like in Australia or in Barbados or Jamaica. That's kind of like my flow. I went to the cooler places.
Yeah.
And it was a good time. And so that brought me back to being a cop or signing up to be a cop. And again, it went through the same spiel. I started to recognize better leadership traits in myself. And I was like, man, I'm good at processing information and then helping other people with that same information. So I was already setting myself up for more like teaching roles and the responsibility of transferring information.
Yeah.
And so became a cop. After probation, I was in the paddy wagon sitting with an old timer.
Okay.
Straight fucking the mayor of the district, right? I was going to call the district. No need to name names, but he was the mayor of the area where we worked.
Okay.
100% political. He knew everybody's first name that was a business owner. He would have his Hennessy VSPO or whatever that one is, the VSOP, in the back of these very well-established Russian Jewish mafia places. And we would go there and we would take our vests off and we would drink and be merry and belly dancers and the cool shit that people don't get to experience when they're too goody two shoes.
Of course.
Because they're not willing to be a part of that. And so we're having a conversation and he's like, I was telling him like military experience, the things that I've done and that I like to do surveillance and track people and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, my buddy, he's a supervisor on the narcotics team.
Okay.
I was like, awesome, man. Well, if they ever need anybody, I'd be interested. He makes a phone call and dude, it happened so fast. As soon as I got off probation, I'm sitting in the back parking lot of our district and I'm meeting these guys and I do an in-process meeting with each of them, each team. So there's 2 guys per car, all junkers, burned out dudes. Some look like bikers, some look like crackheads, some look like fucking college students. Like everybody could buy something. Yeah, it was a cool collective of dudes. And so I had to go meet each one of the teams and do a mini field interview with each of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I met all of them. I come back, I talk to the supervisor guy, and then they're kind of like, well, it's nice meeting you, and they leave. Like the whole cold shoulder thing. Like,
Yeah.
you'll never know.
You'll never know.
if you're in or not. And I'm on patrol, and then I get a packet, and he's like, hey, the team likes you. We'll take you on. We just got to talk to the commander here and see if he'll release you to us as a loaned officer, right?
Yeah.
So he loans me out to them. And I just got to come back and report, show that I'm alive, right? Once a month, let them know what's up. And then I was running around doing fucking narco shit, which was a blast, man. Look, you're involved in the criminal element, but you're a good guy. So you have like a pass from everybody, basically.
Yeah.
Like not that you're not touchable, because if you fuck with the wrong people, you get smoked. But people won't mess with you, but you have to give something up.
Of course.
Right? Either you learn to command the respect, or you demand the respect. And if you demand it, now you're running into conflict, right? You're either going to earn it or you're going to demand it, one of the two. And so we all earned it. We all had our place in the communities. Everybody that knew, all of our confidential guys, they were little rats. So they played the game too. But in that time frame, that's such a hard lifestyle, man, because it's so high energy. You're like running around this whole city, untouchable, unstoppable, and you're like debriefing informants here, and they're ratting somebody out, and you're putting on a fucking armored vest to go hit a house with a mask on because you're not going to get another chance to do this, and getting warrants signed overnight to hit it at 6 a.m, like all sorts of cool stuff happening, very fast paced. It was 18-hour days. Right, so again, that led to more conflict at home.
In a community that you kind of
that you knew. Yeah,
you're doing that shit at home now.
Now it's at home.
Yeah. That's a different animal.
But here was my take, and this again, it goes back to the very patriotic, very love of country, and an understanding that I wasn't in war anymore. I was home.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I didn't treat, though they're criminals and though they're bad guys and they're doing fucked up shit, I didn't treat them like pieces of shit.
Yeah,
they're American citizens.
You never made the mistake of dehumanizing those fuckers.
No, and it kept me safe, and I think it kept the guys safe, because there's an exchange of respect, even though they know. Like at that time, the criminal element was like that. They appreciated the catch and the fight. You know, they're like, "Fuck, you got me. Good job, man." Yeah. You know, they knew they got caught. But there was always this respect for fellow Americans, regardless of the fact that you were on that side of the law, perceivably, and I was on this side of the law. So I never treated anybody badly. We fought people, took guns off people, took drugs off people, gave drugs back so that they would snitch on other people, right? Like, that's another thing too. Like, if you're not in that lifestyle, to look at some shit you took off a dude and be like, is this worth this, or is this worth more to him?
Yeah.
And giving it back to him.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, thanks, man. I was like, hey, next time I see you, I might need a favor.
Yeah, as a resource.
Yeah. And so I started to play that game more and more, especially with small amounts of shit that were irrelevant, right? But some of the younger guys, or some of the guys with different personalities, would like that. They jump all over it. I got a drug arrest. This is awesome.
Yeah,
like,
the $100 bill,
right?
Balloons, and like drug bust of the century.
When I could make that dude my guy.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. 2-3 cell phones, managing CIs, right? We had better trained.
Basically, you were doing all this stuff and learning as you went.
Dude, it was
this is the best school.
It's the best school. And it was on the job training for other shit.
Of course. Like, I get you, man.
Dude, I get you. It was such a good time, and that's how I had a blast with it. It never stressed me out. I think our conviction rate for the team was like something like 98%. So we wrote really good paper. Yeah. Right. And if we put you in cuffs and you weren't going to work for us, we had a good case. Yeah. You know, and like we wrote the best papers. Like I remember like writing the description of the direction of the wind as it was blowing garbage across the street. But like, how do you fucking, like, that's how in tune to what I was watching and observing, right? Yeah. Like, how do you fight against something like that in court? Like, the judge is just like, fuck, these dudes were in it. Yeah. Right? And it was the art of storytelling. Of course. I was telling the court basically, like, this is our experience. So, like, enamoring them with the events and bringing them into how much we cared about the community, that we would take those details and put them into writing to create these convictions. And we didn't put anybody that didn't deserve it away. We made sure that. And anybody who we were going to use, we tried to use them as best we can, but we couldn't keep informants for us long term. Yeah. Because we were a short term team, right? we usually 2 to 3 days, and we make a buy and a bust.
Yeah.
There was midterm teams, and then there was like the ghosts of the Chicago Police Department, like 3 to 9 month missions. Like you disappear for 3 months in the same city you live in. That's wild.
That's insane.
Those guys were like up there, top tier guys, and like these dudes, face tattoos, neck tattoos, like they looked like the guys, you know. So it was always fun to work with those guys. But the short-term teams, we were fast. We were doing buys and turns, 3 to 4 or 5 days, you know, really fast-paced. A lot of heroin at the time when I was still with those guys. That's when the heroin spike.
What year was that?
It's like 16, 17.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of like the turn of legalization of weed and some of those drug fields in Mexico.
Yeah.
Going from weed to heroin, basically, and then kind of the end of the prescription opiate epidemic, and then heroin being the new thing. Yeah.
And then fentanyl, which is, I guess, now-ish. But at that time, when that shifted, it's funny because if you decriminalize one but not all of them, then you get another surge of something else. Something takes its place. Yeah. And that's really what was happening. And so heroin was a big one, and that was easy because I'm Mexican, and it's easy to talk to the Hispanic community. Yeah, it's easy to get by with them. I wasn't perfectly set for a lot of stuff. Like, I don't look like a junkie, so it was tough for me to do a lot of stuff, but it worked. Long sleeve shirts, they do a lot, especially short-term team guys, right? Long-term, you're not going to get away with a lot of stuff fully tatted, right? Because people get to know you. Yeah. But short-term, 3 to 5 buys.
Defining marks on individuals working that line of work is pretty basically. Not long-term. It's short shelf life.
And so, and what we would do, we would rotate what's called enforcement. So we were the guys that would come and grab dudes and put them in cuffs to not burn our other guys. We would rotate positions in areas where we were starting to spend too much time in. Yeah. And then when it was too much in one area, when we've made like 6 arrests in like 3 city blocks, we're like, we can't be here for now. Like, we got to go somewhere else. Like, these motherfuckers know. And we had car changes every week. We would swap out cars, the whole team. But even then, man, like the criminal element is smarter than we give them credit, and they keep track of things.
Yeah, so you're basically learning on the fly. The best school on the planet. Like that was my school basically. Yeah. Like, here, let's go do this shit now. What were you feeding yourself with as far as information? Were you going off training with other people? Were you reading for yourself? Were you going off the experience of the people around you? Like what was that process like?
So for the first few was all about absorbing what the guys that I was with. Yeah. Right?
Basically monkey see, monkey do, follow the leader.
Yeah, because they had their patterning. They had their way of doing specific things. And so the first 3-4 months was modeling after those guys. And then it was like, well, how can we make some of the stuff that we need to do better? Yeah. Right? How can we do better at fighting in tight spaces? Because now we're getting in fights in alleyways between 2 fucking buildings or behind a dumpster. Right?
No, so this is again we were kind of approaching this. The aspect of you doing a job where you're not necessarily trained to do that job and trying to figure out ways of doing that job better. Yeah, and nobody's going to do that for you. Right, you have to fucking figure that shit out for yourself. From what holster to carry. Mm-hmm. To if you want to carry something in support of that holster, to how to train to fight somebody, all these kind of problems that started presenting themselves in your career as you were working in that environment, where basically you're training yourself up to be better and proficient in that environment. Basically, what mistakes did you make?
All of them.
I would say like, well, Vic, no, what? Wow. How did you fuck up?
So a few times, so dudes would rob undercover dudes all the time, right? Yeah. Dudes would run and take your shit, and you'd have to chase them, and then that leads to a fight where something falls out that shouldn't have fallen out, and you're like, fuck, that needs to stay in the holster.
Retention.
Retention really matters. Or smaller guns.
That's an interesting one. Like, so how did you solve a retention problem? Like, what did you have and what did you replace it with? And what was the process like that for you?
So a lot of stuff for me started to go deeper into a pocket.
Okay.
Right? So
deeper concealment.
Yeah, because it's hard to conceal a police issued Glock 19 or 17 or anything like that.
I remember we got Glock 17s and we were told to conceal them. It only took I think a Marisoc guy showed us how to cut them down into a 19 handle.
Yeah.
But this is before Instagram. This is early 2000s.
Yeah.
We didn't know shit.
Yeah.
So it's always fascinated me when people go through their process of kind of like whittling shit out and putting into the bare minimum as far as and this is basically what you now kind of teach, but so you deeper concealment options.
Deeper concealment if and here's the difference in how it translates to now. Then it was for sure I have to go hands-on because I'm trying to arrest these dudes.
You're trying to
have to touch these motherfuckers.
You're going into a confrontation. Yeah. You can't run the other way.
Right.
Avoidance is not is not an option.
Yeah. Because we do talk about all those things.
Of course.
Those are the best options.
Yeah, of course.
But you can't, in a job setting, which it like hyper amplifies the need for good equipment, good tactics, good everything, because you're going to lose your shit.
Yeah.
And I remember picking up other dudes' guns, like our guys, running in unsecured holsters. Shit would fall out, and I'm the second guy running behind him, and he's running behind the other dude. And I would just yell at him, like, go, I got it. And I would pick it up for him, and I would put it in my pocket, and we'd keep going because we can't leave a gun on the fucking street, right?
Of course not, yeah.
And so he's chasing him, and those little moments of fuck-ups were teaching already. I was collecting data and information on how to make a better this job better, or safer, right?
Yeah.
There are programs. I know the FBI has a program for undercover guys and all this shit. But it's the way the tactics were for the military. They're not relevant right now. They were like what they learned in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But like now it's different. And so, putting stuff in pockets, smaller guns. So as soon as that shit happened, dropping a 19, I was like, fuck, all right, I'm going to go get this 38 special, qualify with it really quickly so it's on the books with the department. And if I use it, it's authorized. That would go in a pocket or in I had a hoodie with a zipper on the inside, and then that was in my underwear. Yeah. Right? And then I can have my hands in my hoodie and take them out and not worry about it sagging. Yeah. Right? Because it sags because of the weight. So that was a no-go. Yeah. And it prints a little bit because of the way it sags. But with the zipper in there, I can put it into my belt line, like into my underwear, and I would wear really tight, what are they called? The tighty whities, the white underwear, the little super tight ones, not the boxer briefs where shit falls out if you put them in. Basically, that was like a jock strap underwear pocket. Yeah. So they would go in there, and that would sit in there, and it didn't look like anything, and the sweater didn't do anything. And so it was easier to hold on to things that way. Yeah. And so those little tidbits of how not to lose things, and when somebody, once they know that you're a cop, they're trying to reach for stuff too. Yeah. They're feeling for guns and shit. They're trying to disarm you because.
So retention and controlling of limbs and keeping them from producing a weapon and actually going hands-on with motherfuckers that want to murder you.
Yep.
Real life.
And what's funny, right, is it sounds like, why don't they teach them more of that, more fighting tactics when you end up having to fight with people?
Well, that's the assumption that a lot of people have. Like so you see a cop out there struggling with an individual that's trying to arrest them, and like, what about all the training and shit like that? What about?
Yeah, it's so minimal, the fight training stuff. And so, again, that's what's leading us into what I do now with Rogue Methods and building people is that idea, like, first we got to deal with the person, right? As things introduce themselves into the environment, we deal with those next. But don't hyper-focus on the tools. Like, that's the big message and the difference between what I think I do and a lot of other people do. But it all came from that, losing a gun here, picking it up, picking up somebody, all the fuck ups.
Basically, you got the experience, you got the opportunity, you got the opportunity to fuck up in ways that have been so fucking dangerous. You could have died in any of these, right? You got really close to the sun, touched it a little bit, burnt your hands, and now you're coming back and telling people, this is when you give an opinion on a holster. Your opinion doesn't come from, I EDC this one every time I go to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. No, you're running after motherfuckers. People are trying to rip that off you. Yeah. This is what starts building the groundwork for what becomes Rogue Methods.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what Rogue Methods, basically how it started, how your training company and basically your classes kind of started?
Yeah. Again, a lot of them stemmed from all those fuck up moments,
failure.
Like a little thing with people with holsters that come to the class, like I'll kind of like yank on their gun to see how loose it is. Yeah, I'm like, I know you don't fight over stuff, because on my guns, all the retention is fucking driven down so hard that you have to fight the gun out of the holster.
Snap it out.
Because I'm not trying to do sub-second draws, right?
Yeah.
I think they're important and they're fun, but I'm not trying to do that when I'm wrestling a dude. And if you carry a gun, the gun shouldn't be the first thing you introduce to this fucking problem, right? Talk your way out of it, fight your way out of it, then maybe use a tool if everything else is out of the window. But you want that shit to stay in there because you don't have other levels of retention. You just have the holster, right? And your t-shirt and your body and your hands and your mind. So all of it is a holster. Like your body is the holster. I think people give too much credit to the little piece of plastic.
I've never heard that anybody describe it. That's true.
Yeah.
Basically, your capability to retain is a holster.
Yes.
Your spatial awareness.
The fucking holster. However far your hands can reach, however far your eyes can see, and your capability to fight, that's the holster.
Because once that gun comes out, and if it's not the right tool for what's happening, it might become a tool that gets used against you.
Yes. And it's really hard to put guns back really fast.
Yeah. So that obviously not just that experience, but your experiences as a youth growing up in Chicago, your experiences in the military, your experiences in life in general, figuring shit out.
And then the countless hours of training too with your friends in controlled environments.
Yeah.
Like this is where we field tested more stuff, right? We had the experiences, we had those moments where we're like, let's use that as an example for how we're going to do this. And then we would just explore hours on end on how this can be better.
So that's another aspect of it. Like, so did a lot of this kind of the initial inceptions of rogue methods as basically your training arm? Was that a lot of like basically in-house training that you started with people that were close to you, like a core group of people where you started to kind of figure things out?
Yeah, people that were interested in the same stuff, right?
Which is hard to find people
sure.
like, hey, dude, you want to fuck around for a gun?
Invite people almost, right?
Yeah.
Like we'd have the really good boxers, and I wanted to know how to strike in short range.
Yeah.
So then you invite them in to do this gun stuff, and you're like, hey, what punch would be the best, and how could we deliver the strongest punch at 8 inches?
Okay.
And he's like, why would you be that close? I was like, it doesn't matter.
Just
help me out here.
Figure
and then
shit
he's
out.
like, okay, cool. And then they talk about torque. So when I teach people how to strike in our classes, it's to strike in that tight space. So you make it count. And I actually saw a cool video last night. There's a dude punching another dude, but he's like flailing and he's punching with his arm.
Yeah.
He's just slapping him basically. Yeah. And then the other dude blocks everything, cocks back, turns his body, crank, boom, knocks the dude out. I was like, that is exactly what we're trying to teach you is like, you can be devastating with less if you do it right. Yeah. And so a lot of it is that it's the collection of information, things that I've seen done, things that have worked for other people that I've gathered and collected. So I collect and share. This is why I don't give a shit about my material the way people do.
Yeah.
Like I bring things in, not to cut you off, brother, I'm sorry. Yeah. I bring things in and then I share them. And I want them to live amongst the people versus where some people like they trademark things or they put things in their fucking name and like you can only come to me for this. We're kind of the opposite. I want this shit to grow with the help of the people that are experimenting with what we're doing.
I got my first glimpse of your work through social media, you know, like most people, I guess. There are people out there showing training firearms across the country in different ways. There's people doing combatives of different kinds and various kinds and everything like that. What caught my attention when I was seeing you do it was that you were doing it, you know? As an instructor myself, I can't for the life of me teach you anything that I can't demo directly.
100%.
Right? So I've always admired people that will show me, don't tell me, you know? So I have this vision of you in a video. Basically, you know, there's some students trying to fight over a pistol, and then this is how I would do it, and you introduce yourself into a fray. Yeah. And it's a fray, you know. It's
unpredictable.
It's unpredictable. It is a risky thing for an instructor to do, and some people won't risk that because they don't want to fail in front of students. They don't want to injure themselves, maybe. But you're like, fuck it, we'll do it live, right? Yeah. And you jump in there. That immediately caught my eye as far as your teaching style. Later on, we decided to collaborate on a class, and I went out there and I saw you do things directly. What caught my attention is the cutting things down into their basic components that you're doing for people. And you know, you had in that class that I was with you, we had people from various backgrounds.
Everything.
Federal law enforcement professionals, professional fighters, the people, accomplished jiu-jitsu players, housewives.
Yeah.
The professional photographers that had absolutely no violent skills attached to them, and
Linemen.
Yeah. But people gathering together in a very honest way.
Mm-hmm.
No egos. And when I say no egos there, I mean anybody with an ego would be, there's always somebody there that will humble you if you think you're the biggest, baddest motherfucker there, basically. And we did in an honest way. It was like almost like a tribal experience.
Yes.
For me, as I was when I'm witnessing people basically breaking their shit down to the basic components.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with us as presenters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I walk into a room, I don't walk in fucking chin up and like, look at all these fucking peasants. I'm the guy. I don't ever walk in. I walk in, I'm, hey, what's up, guys? What's going on? What's up, Tim? How are you? Good to see you, man. Let's do this. Let's do that. I throw myself in the mix right away so that they can see it can be done, and I'm not scared to do it. They shouldn't be scared to do it either.
But there's a hesitance sometimes when students come in, it's a new thing. Everybody's quiet. Nobody knows each other. It's like, what the fuck's up with this guy?
I usually open with a joke. I'll come in and say some bullshit or talk some shit about something, and it helps people kind of break off of that. But then you got to be careful. Like we're talking about comedy, I test material out and I'm like, ooh, that's not going to work well. And this Christian side of Alabama, and this isn't going to work well over here. This works better there.
Basically, you have to adapt the material.
Man, you have to care about the people.
Yeah.
The people make everything.
So one thing I've noticed, training community wise, there's a big need out there for people that want to basically test themselves. Yes. I think is kind of what I see. When I say test themselves, I mean people don't know something. I mean, if you don't know yourself, you are in a very dangerous place. For sure. I think, and testing yourself honestly in a combative sense, specifically if you're somebody that has decided to take up arms. When I mean take up arms, I mean if somebody decides to conceal carry a firearm, they are bringing a lot of responsibility with that.
Absolutely.
And if that responsibility isn't fed with training, exposure, experience, controlled or otherwise, they're more of a detriment to society than a benefit, right? That classic example of the dude open carrying a Glock with a Serpa holster walking into a 7-Eleven somewhere. What is your purpose with what you're doing as far as the training that Rogue Methods is now kind of providing to people? I mean, you're opening this type of training up to basically come one, come all. If you want to test yourself out, which is, I've seen other companies that cater to a specific type of demographic, right. But I've seen. Various types of people showing up.
It's such a wild mix. It's like you said, the housewife, the soccer mom, to decorated MMA fighter or a DA dudes, like feds from all over, cops from all over, SWAT dudes. Everybody's showing up. And
what is the what are you doing with it? Like I get the aspect of sharing some of this stuff with them, but specifically, what is your intention with sharing some of these experiences with these people that they might not have to roll with somebody with a firearm in their lives? Like, why show them that?
The physical part of the class is just like a small performance point, right?
Yeah.
But the purpose is that liberation of self. Like, come do some hard-ass shit with strangers who, by design, they don't show up and take care of each other. Like, this is part of my programming for the course. Like I build this community, I build this like close-knit group of people really quickly, mind you. Like in 2 days, we have to be friends because I'm about to trust you guys to not break each other.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Or freak out and have these moments of insanity where you start fucking trying to like step on somebody's head.
It doesn't matter how many times you tell them, take it slow, people.
Yes. But I start ingraining that in them the moment we meet.
Yeah.
Like control of pace, control of attitude. I talk to them about heart rate zones. I talk to them about psychology of dumps or ebbs and flows of their adrenaline and how they need to learn to control these things. And that's true warrior shit.
Yeah.
Not just bashing somebody's head in. It's like everything before and everything after. And so it's building this, it's giving the possibility of you getting an experience that took me 15 years to figure out.
Condensing
that to the 2-3 days that I get you. And most people come back again. I think we're at like 30% return customer rate for our first year in business, which is fucking wild.
Yeah, it's, I think you provide an experience. Obviously, you're providing material and learning, of course.
Yes.
And I've seen the methodology, the technique, the tactics, the basics of combatives that you're showing them. You're pointing out holes that people have in their combative spaces. Like I've seen some people that are amazing grapplers that show up to your classes, but they can't punch for shit.
Right.
And you expose them to that.
Yeah.
Or people that might be athletic and they can punch and kick and do all these things, but their gun handling skills are bullshit.
Yeah.
People showing up and are afraid, or people that are like, I don't know. Like I see some of the videos and I see, these guys are fucking going at it.
Yeah.
You know, what do you tell to those people that look at the violence, controlled violence, because it's completely controlled violence. It's but what do you tell to the people that see some of this and say, that's beyond me?
So what's funny is I have a formula for that where it's almost like I don't say much to them. But if I had to say something to them, right? It's you have to know, like you said, what you can do and what you're capable of. And what better way than with people that care about you, that want to see you succeed, but you have to come in here and you have to sweat a little, bleed a little maybe, right? Mm-hmm. And diminish what you think you're good at and really see what you're good at. I'm like, what's fun about the program is, and it happens every time, you'll have somebody who has nothing experience. They know how to shoot a gun. Yeah. And I'm like, cool, we can work with this. They do just as well as somebody who has more experience because the tools change everything. Yeah. Right? You can't go a certain direction because that's where the muzzle line is. You can't go this way because you'll land on top of a blade. So it limits you, and they're more of an open book. They're willing to try and experiment, and their creativity from lack of training, right, almost takes them into this better place. It's exciting to see.
For me, seeing some of these people figuring shit out for themselves.
That's the big difference right there. Is what I want and allow is that freedom of expression. Yeah. I don't let you do weird shit like backflips and like, you know what I mean? Like throw a spear from across the room.
I get it.
But I'm okay with you doing something different.
Somebody passing a handgun behind their back to the other hand.
I have a video coming out.
To keep away from somebody.
Yeah. I have a video coming out where the dude has to clear a malfunction, takes the magazine out, and he's being grabbed from behind, so he can't get the gun because the dude's holding his hands. So he pushes his hands down, lifts his legs up, and he reloads by his butthole. Imagine that, right? He reloads by his butthole, like legs, like imagine you're like bending over completely and reloading behind your butt cheeks. Yeah. That's freedom of expression. It's okay to go there. Is it ideal? Who fucking knows?
I think that's the art in martial arts.
Yes, there needs to be art.
That's the art part of it.
Right? Yeah, and I enjoy that. I learn from people when they do creative things like that. I'm like, well, that's possible. Would it be possible for a dude with a giant belly? Probably not.
But
right?
But in that moment, he's getting the experience, a controlled experience that he might
for his files. So that fight is solely for him. Right? The results of every single fight are purposeful and they're all positive because the way I designed the drills, there's no good guy and there's no bad guy. You're playing both roles simultaneously. Yeah. And this is what's, again, unique to Rogue Methods that I don't see anywhere else. And I've done a lot of programs with other people to see. And what I wanted to do when I launched Rogue Methods was I didn't want it to be a competitor. I wanted it to be its own fucking thing so that I'm adding value to the community, not trying to fucking fight somebody for business. I was like, that's a stupid model. Why do that? Yeah. Why not create something that's its own thing has its own purpose, its own goals, and then people can just come to it or not, right? Like I don't force anybody to do it. You're all welcome. But it's different, and it's the free play. It's the highlight of accomplishments via weird shit.
Yeah.
Like we get weird.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think some of the most rewarding stuff for me seeing that class was when students had to go, basically you would set them up and they would have to figure things out with the basis of what they experienced in the training for those 2 days.
Right.
And mind you, if you want to simulate a real environment or a real fight, these people are already tired, they're taxed, their body chemistry is all over the place. And man, I'm witnessing people, crack off a few shots in an impossible situation, and seeing that real life. And then you go into that, well, that might happen in real life. And then you can go into a bunch of videos of actually people actually doing this type of stuff out there. What would you tell somebody that would see some of your videos and said, well, I'm a teacher, somewhere in an old town. I'm never going to face any of this shit. Why would I have to train with you to shoot somebody in the face in a grappling situation? I'll just stand back and shoot them from afar, or I'll call the cops. Like, what's your sales pitch to somebody that says that this is too extreme or this is something that it's not for them,
A lot of it's just encouraging and inviting them, right? Like, look, I get that you have those scenarios played out already.
Yeah.
I was like, but what is your option for this now?
Yeah.
Right? And if they can answer me and then they tell me, well, I'm going to use this elbow to make space and I'm going to do this kick and I'm going to do all this stuff, then it's like, okay, at least maybe you thought about it. But for the most part, they don't have an answer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so now that they're pondering it, right? I'm like, you don't have to find the answer in your mind when you can figure it out with us.
Yeah.
And at least you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know if this is some shit you want to avoid, because here's what happens to most people. When they do this shit, they're like, that was fucking gnarly. I hope I never have to do this for real. And I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
Exactly. But here's the cool shit. Now you have a file for this. So if you're ever in this situation, it's not new.
Yeah.
It might be new in the sense of the real violence, right? If you haven't experienced violence, that's a whole nother fucking animal. But at least the mechanical shit, the physical shit, you figured out a little bit. Now, all of the training, and this is what I don't think people get this about my videos that I post, because they're very high paced, fast. Everybody's fucking rolling around gravel.
It seems like just chaos. Sometimes it seems like chaos, but then if you're there, you realize that there's problem solving going on.
There's so much. Like when I watch the videos of the fights, I'm seeing 100 different things that I'm like, oh shit, that was awesome. Look, he moved his foot here to do this. Most people are just like, they're judging it and like, this is what I would do, right?
Yeah,
I would have done this. And I invite them. So in the comment sections of my stuff, somebody's like, oh, that shit wouldn't work. They should be doing this. I'll say one of two things. Hey man, show up and let's see if that'll happen for real in your situation. Or I look forward to seeing you and your videos on how to do it right.
Yeah.
That's how I leave people.
Yeah, show me, don't tell me.
Show me, exactly. Show me the way that you're talking about. But the purpose of the class is, one, not to get your shit taken, how to protect it if it is taken, how to get it back if it's fucking in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
And those are the goals that we're trying to do. And they all come from just your hands, then maybe a grappling match, then a tool's involved. Like there's layers to this fucking thing, and that's what people don't see in the videos. But it's on purpose. I do that on purpose.
What are some of the things that students come to you with after they go through the class? Like, oh, I need to work on this. I need to figure this out. Like, what are some of the common?
So I've been keeping a log.
Okay.
Believe it or not, of the stuff that pops up afterwards. So the majority of what I've been tracking is how much people enjoy grappling, and they end up joining a gym or a local boxing club or some sort of fitness center, right? So
basically, they realize their physicality is probably subpar, and they
that's
need
the
to
biggest
build
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so not only am I generating business for other people by inspiring these people to go work out, go train at a local gym, right? Like I have actual numbers of people that have joined gyms. So now through what we're doing, right, it's And again, it's the bring people up. So now that gym is doing better in the area that I went to because 5 dudes from my class just joined their gym.
And
like,
also these
those
people,
little things.
and also these people are bettering their lives.
But
being physically active.
That's the
and
important
getting
part.
stronger.
Yeah, the individual is actually gaining something for themselves, and they're pushing themselves now into new shit, right? From the law enforcement side, I get this one a lot. Why the fuck didn't we learn this before?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. There's a reason why guys leave to do teaching, and that's why there's a lot of good instructors out there. They leave because they saw something wrong somewhere and they want to help fix it.
Yeah,
right?
or they didn't get what they
didn't
would
get
want.
what they know.
They didn't get what they would want to know, and then they had to fucking learn like you did.
Yeah.
Fucking go out there and get your
And dude, I
shit
say it
out.
almost everywhere I go, but one of my biggest fears in life is to not pass on the shit that helped me fix myself emotionally, mentally, physically, and survive some of the fucking bullshit in the world. And so if I can share that shit, that's like a highlight for me.
Yeah.
Like that's my true, internal purpose, right? Business, I have a different purpose. Family, I have a different purpose. But the point of teaching is to like dump this shit on other people so that they have something to work with. And then the last one is I tried this in this class because I wanted to do something that I thought, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I was like, because what you were trying was very rule regimented.
Yeah.
Fights don't happen the way we think they do.
Yeah.
Yes, you can only do certain things with your limbs, but people can get creative.
Yeah.
And then everything changes every layer you take away. So from standing to kneeling to laying down, that's a whole different fights. Those are 3 different fight realms. So that's why we play with a standing fight, we play with a kneeling fight, we play with a grounded fight. So they get an experience of fighting from standing to kneeling to being on the ground to back to standing, all without having to be slammed into the ground and crushed. Right? So you don't have to get crushed to know what it feels like to get crushed.
Yeah.
But you're going to experience it in layers. And that's why I think people have such a fun time, because it isn't like you get there and then you do what the fight videos show.
Yeah. So no, what are the prerequisites to come to one of these classes?
0.
So I don't have to be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu.
Fuck no.
Do I have to be in law enforcement?
No.
Do I have to have some sort of combatives background?
No.
Can I show up without any fucking notion or clue about specifically what's going on, and it can figure things out there?
Yes. Yes, to the point where, look, you have to have some sort of understanding of firearms because it is firearms centric.
Basic firearms. Yeah. Basic firearms.
And if all you know is that the point where the rounds come out go the other way, I'm okay with that. I could work with that because you'll know not to point it at yourself.
Yeah.
Though what's beautiful in these fights, there's times where you point the gun at yourself to point it back at them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But the internet's like, oh my God, you're
flagging yourself. Well, that's what happens when you're actually rolling for life and death somewhere. You're going to flag yourself.
And one of the recent videos, there's a girl with a red sweater, and she's holding the gun, and then she moves her face over the muzzle and comes out on the other side, right? She comes over, and you can see it where she muzzles her face with the other person's gun. The only thing is I don't think she could see that.
Yeah. Yeah,
so from the outside looking in, everybody's like, dude, she muzzled. I was like, I bet you she didn't notice.
She didn't notice that.
And then they're like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I was like, people are too conditioned now to think they can solve a problem watching a video. So what we offer is the actual problem solving, hands fucking on.
Yeah.
And we do it in a setting where it's individual growth, but it's team-based fucking training, man. You have to take care of each other. I push it from day one. If anybody's too asshole-ish, we either pull them or we have a conversation. Usually once we have a conversation, they get back to normal and everything's fucking cool, right? Because I can't help you get better at stuff and break you at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's not my intent in any of this.
People, a lot of the people that I saw in your class came in with their own holsters,
Yes.
Oh, obviously, everybody's coming with their own equipment,
Their own gear
holster.
to test it.
A lot of that shit got tossed away. We're not gonna, we're not gonna bad mouth holsters and shit like that. But configurations, gear wise, and things like of that nature. Like, what have you seen work for people? Like, what setups do you see work for people that are kind of coming through some of the training with you?
So, I mean, for law enforcement, they carry level 2s, which is just like a little clip in, right? But if you're a cop, man, and you're going hands on, get the one with the hood. So you have 3 layers of protection, the shroud, right? You want all of that. So then you don't have to worry about putting your hands on the thing, you can worry about the fucking dude.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion for law enforcement, and that's what I carried. I was like, it needs to be a level 3, so I don't.
And
have
it's
to
something
worry.
that you've reproven over and over again
Constantly.
through control training.
All control training, even in real life. Even bad dudes are like, it was hard as fuck. I couldn't get that gun.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's a 1 for the holster.
Now, for somebody that's a civilian
For
carrying
civilian
concealed.
side, yeah. Look, appendix is just easier to control. It's in front of you. Your elbows can protect it. Your hands can protect it. It's just infinitely better than it being behind you or somewhere
So
else.
for people that don't know what appendix is,
So in the front, right? In
Carrying
the
it.
belly side, in the front, near the belly button.
Kydex.
Kydex is better. Look, leather is good too. Leather is good, but it's not good for reholstering or holstering in general,
Okay.
right? So
Because it
smashes itself
it
down.
smashes
but look,
down.
if you're a smart motherfucker and you know that it smashes down, well, then just take the whole holster off, put the gun in the holster, and then put it back on.
Yeah.
This is why I don't do nevers and always.
Yeah.
Like that's not the world that I live in, because that's not the world, and I don't think it's not that black and white. There's a lot of gray.
Metal clips versus rubber belt loops or
So rubber belt loops do snap off.
Rubber belt loops are failure.
They fail, but they're not terrible.
Okay.
Right? Clips are good too. I know that the discrete carry concepts guys make a really
Metal
great
one.
fucking clip, man.
Yeah.
And I've ripped like through leather belts trying to break those off. They do bend and warp, but it's a spring, right? It's gonna load. It's gonna load awkwardly and open. They hold the best, I think, the metal clips, and then they're damaging.
Yeah.
So because of some of the styles of fighting that we do, I use the holster to grind into your fucking hands to break your knuckles off the gun. And if you're wearing all soft stuff, you can't use it to your benefit, right? So that's why I don't like the soft loops, because I actually use the holster to fight your fucking hands. And so the metal clips in that front position, belly button area, appendix area, easier to defend, easier to grab, easier to keep away than having something isolated on one side of the body.
Yeah.
Now, something really cool that I picked up from one of the FMA world is they carry a tool on each side.
Yeah.
So whichever side is compromised, they have something on the other side, which I
Okay.
thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I carry my personal carry. I carry appendix and a blade, but they're both accessible from both
a
sides. in case.
knife and a gun, which just leads me to my next thing. Like, what do you recommend people carry with their gun? Obviously, spare magazine. But what else? What else do I carry with my gun? You know, I've seen you integrate tools that are that people are like, hey, they come in with their gun holster. They don't come with a tourniquet,
Right.
right? Or
Yeah. So we do integrate tourniquet work in medical because I think it's important. You better patch yourself up if you do get fucking hurt, right? Or patch somebody else up. But for gear, your protective measure gear, a fixed blade is super important because you don't have to flick it open and do all this shit. Even the wave feature, I think it's good, but it's not infighting good.
It's my personal experience, and I know the man that
Right.
invented it. You know, very good man, Ernest Emerson.
Yeah.
It's not 100%.
Correct.
Right.
And the last thing you want is for it to half open and crush your fucking fingers in that blade. And so that's why I don't like those for that.
Yeah.
Right. I do like the straight fixed blades, right? Double-sided if that's what you're into, or just know how to use it, right? And get a little bit of training in. But that blade protects the gun, or the gun protects the blade, which allows both of them. I'm not a big fan of using both simultaneously. I don't know that I'll ever be that ninja, but I like using one and the other. Like the black dude. You remember that guy? He shot the ceiling at the range and then he stabbed the target.
Yeah, that guy. I don't
He
know.
would
I
do
don't
like
know.
stab and shoot at the same time.
Yeah. No.
I don't even know.
That's
Let's
a
not
good-
even make him famous though.
That's a good way to shoot yourself in the hand, probably.
Yeah, because you're reaching out and trying to shoot. You're trying to stab with one hand, then you're trying to shoot with
that's
the
all-
other.
that's all it's-
That's
that-
risky.
yeah.
But I do believe that one helps protect the other, and people should carry both. Minimal stuff. It doesn't have to be a fucking samurai sword,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So when somebody starts off in this, they want a base. They come to one of your classes. I think your class is a pretty good litmus test for people's overall. What would you recommend to somebody that wants to start building themselves up as a, not necessarily as a warrior? We're not talking about any of this. Somebody who wants to become capable.
Yeah.
Somebody that wants to be an asset to their family if something happens. Somebody that wants to be capable of fighting, defending themselves. Like, what do you recommend? Where do they start?
So if they have no baseline, and the easiest thing you can do, and this is like completely off topic, be barefoot more.
Okay.
So that your feet are strong. You need your fucking feet to fight.
Okay.
I think people are like, well, we need to, have upper body strength and, punching power. I was like, man, you need fucking feet.
You need a base. You need
somewhere.
A base. You need a base.
You do. Your base needs to be sound. So even the shoes I have now, the shoes I live in, they're all flat shoes designed to mimic being barefoot and just protect the bottoms of your feet. That will give your ankles the strength that they need. I mean, where do you have the biggest tendon on the body? Your fucking Achilles, man. Yeah. Like, that's important.
It's a very important.
So your legs are your driving power for fighting. Like, you need them. So if you're going to do anything with us, I recommend sled pushes, walking backwards, lunges. Build your freaking legs. That'll build a warrior. Everybody that I've seen successful in the classes has a strong lower body.
Yeah.
But that's huge for us. So what I would recommend, build your fucking feet, right? Build your legs. A little bit of cardio goes a long way, just in general.
In general, I think cardio is, it's hard. It hurts. It's difficult.
Sure.
We're getting older. Some of us are getting older, But yeah, cardio. I see a lot of people trying to go places where they want to learn everything,
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest pet peeves is any program that'll show you everything,
Right.
Like you said, you went to boxers to teach you how to strike short range. You went to grappling specific people to show you some of that. What about a combative space? Like, what do you recommend people train in?
So if you're a parent, the best advice I can give you is put your kids in wrestling. It'll build a human unlike any other. Like the discipline, the strength, the commitment. Like, if you can start as a parent, like if you can mold a child, that's what you want to do.
Rough and tumble.
Put them in fucking wrestling, right? If you're already a grown-up, look, jiu-jitsu is good because it gives you the exposure and the pressure of another human being trying to fucking choke you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so jiu-jitsu is always going to be good. Striking's a hard one for grown-ups. Getting punched in the face, depending on your work, right? Yeah. It's difficult. Even just brain getting tossed around is hard for some people. Yeah. Most people don't hydrate enough to take a punch to the head, right? So people that take better shots are usually better hydrated, like because the brain's filled with water and your body does better with water in it. So one is hydration, obviously. But look, wrestling and jiu-jitsu are big ones because of the exchange of energy with a human. And though it is a choreographed play, it is sporadic. You don't know what the other guy wants to do, but you can feel what he's trying to do.
Yeah, it teaches you to be reactive. It teaches you how to be a bit more intuitive with motion.
Yeah. And you can, if you don't have a gym to go to, you can play with your kids, you can play with your wife. Like, let them do weird shit and then you move them around and just playfully get things going. Those would be good starting foundations for understanding your body. Yeah. I think a lot of what's missing in people is body awareness.
Yeah, people don't know their body. They're not aware of what their body can do, their limits,
like one of our very first drills, I'm not even going to tell you guys what it is, but you know what it was, like that contact drill we did in the beginning.
Yeah.
That right there sets the tone because there's a good majority of people that come into the classes have never done something like that.
Yeah.
So the first time that happens to them,
you can tell they're worried about their space. They're worried about their base. They're like, "Holy shit! What am I doing right now?" There's a moment.
This thing that I'm about to do, I didn't even conceptualize until this very moment. I'm like, "Wow, well, welcome, man."
Yeah.
And it's a huge smile on my face, and everybody's cheering them on.
Yeah.
And it's things that are missing. People fucking cheering you on.
Yeah, we want to talk about minorities in this world. One of the biggest minorities on the planet is people that will show up to a class like that.
Yep.
People that are actually having the balls and the courage to basically step forward and say, "Yes, I'm going to fucking train to be able to be capable," basically.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so cool. We sell out a lot. Like I think all of our stuff for this year is sold out already, and we're starting into next year. But I tell the people in the classes, I'm like, "Hey, you guys that are here today, it's a unique personality trait. Not everybody shows up. No. I get a shit ton of emails asking me questions, and I can hear the nervousness via the text.
Of course.
Right? Yeah, and then the people that show up are like, fuck, man, it like took a lot. I finally hit, register, and here I am. And then they leave, and they're like, fuck, yeah. Again, it's people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
But when they come and they get and they realize they're capable of it, and the programming is incredibly simplistic. right? It's not easy, but it's simple because, again, formulas for teaching, adults don't have a lot of time. They have short attention spans, right?
Yeah.
And so I teach in these little models, these like 15-minute blocks. And if we can move on, we move on. If not, I rephrase and re-educate, and we stay there just a little bit longer, and then we move on.
Yeah.
But we haven't had to move on and leave people behind.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just a testament to the programming, not to me, because I use models and I don't like to take full credit. I use a lot of we's and us, like teams. But the modeling has been that. Every time something doesn't stick, I find a way to make it better for the next one. And so that's what I think people with no experience show up and they're like, fuck, I can do this. And I'm like, yeah, you just took that gun away from that dude and he's experienced.
Yeah.
Because you've at least followed one of the three principles.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, like the realization that some of them get. Mm-hmm. This is feasible. This isn't John Wick shit. Yeah. This is not This is not choreographed. This is not let me do what I need to do. This is people keeping each other honest.
Yeah.
In a controlled space, and there's some chaos in there, but it is an amazing thing seeing people come out of it. Finding some of these people coming back with experiences. Mm-hmm. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, and so what they communicate, and it's cool. I've had 2 or 3, and I mean I've had plenty, but 2 or 3 that stood out.
Yeah,
and it's what I was after. I was like, fuck, finally I'm hearing what I want to hear. As far as what you're supposed to be seeing on your end, right?
Yeah.
Like I know what I want for you, but you have to experience it. Otherwise it doesn't happen, right? So one of the ladies was like, she came back the second time for the program, and she's like, now I could see the fight from another angle. Okay. So I knew what I was doing, and now I could pay attention to what they were doing. Where the first iteration, she could only manage herself. And it was reactive and reactive and reactive versus responding, right? So a reaction is something emotional and erratic. A response is coordinated and trained, right? And so now she's thinking in the response theory. Yeah. So now she can be like, okay, she's moving her hand back. I need to follow her hand. So she would follow the hand and not lose the gun. So like now she's starting to see things a little bit better. She's like, I bet the next time I come, I'll be able to see it from the outside, and then I can manage everything. So the fact that one first go around allowed her to figure out how it was for her to experience it for herself. The second go around, she's experiencing it through somebody else, right? And still gaining all the information. And she's like, I was able to slow it down, and I can feel and see, and I actually knew what was happening in the drill. Most people after the drill, they're like, I don't even know what happened. And I'm like, well, good thing I have video so you can see. Yeah. Right? Yeah. They're like, oh, shit, I did that? I was like, yeah, crazy, huh? Like, yeah. It's a thing.
For me, it's like seeing some of the students that showed up to your class. A lot of them were shooters. Yeah. Some of them were shooters, but their experience in shooting was related to a square, linear range.
Yeah. Static paper targets.
And all of a sudden you introduce them to this, the fourth dimension or whatever the fuck. It's like mind expanding to them when they start figuring out that they can pass the gun from one hand to the other, and there's going to be a range violation screamed out somewhere. The getting people out of that weird bubble that some people kind of live in, as far as, it's training, it's valuable, but putting them into a situation where the dimensions change. That was a pretty powerful experience to kind of witness for myself.
It's liberating, right? Even on our end, to give people that freedom to do that shit. Because if we impose limitations, and this is what happens with the flat range stuff, you impose all these rules, right? And I get it, it's for safety, whatever. But now people, not that they're going to act that way, but that they're going to be like, wait, what was that thing I was supposed to do? Instead of like, free play this shit, free flow, allow it to happen, and then solve the problem as you're going. Yeah. A lot of big things in it for me in these drills is I have goals for people. Right? I have goals set in my mind for each partner pair as they're going through their iteration. So as they're fighting, I'm like, okay, I want him to try to do this, but I'm not saying it, because if I tell them that, now I kind of like put a task on them, right? And then they're going to try to do it, and then they're going to fail, and then they're going to feel like they failed. Yeah. So I don't tell anybody this.
That's a great.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, I know this is what he's going to try to do. This is the goal. This is what I want from him. And people execute that like, it's not like I'm a magician, but I can figure people out doing this long enough.
You you point the way, but you don't tell them what they're gonna find.
Yeah,
You know?
and that way there's no losing. Like, this is the big thing with a lot of this stuff. People watch these and they're like, oh, that guy lost, or that guy did this and he should have taken that. I was like, how do you know who the good guy is in this situation?
Yeah.
How do you know who was trying to not fire the gun? Or you don't even know if this drill calls for unloading the gun, right? So now I have all these drills, and one of them is this. You're fighting with somebody, and the goal is to see who can unload the gun first. So you and I have a gun between us. Go, we grab it. One of us has to unload it. The drill doesn't end until the gun is fully unloaded, right? Now you're watching the scramble and people doing weird shit, and they're like, what are they doing? Why aren't they trying to shoot each other?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because you don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah.
You're judging it from the outside looking in. But I have all these little tasks in these drills, like that hand swapping drill, a new drill that I kind of put together because of that hand swapping the gun is we'll put the head on the chest and the partner's moving, and you have to move the partner, but the partner's trying to grab the gun, and you have to swap it every time you feel the gun is in danger. So now they're getting random reps of gun swapping hand to hand. And every time you think there's an opportunity to put it into your firing hand and break a shot, go. And so now we're playing not only with the freestyling shit, right,
Yeah.
that we've allowed them to experiment with. So now we're taking the experimental shit and making it a drill.
Yeah.
So now we're even furthering down the possibilities. So it's exciting, man. It's one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on.
Where do you what specific courses do you offer to the public?
So we have for our core class right now, because I'm on the road doing this one, is the close contact gunfighter.
Yeah, you're fucking on the road constantly. It's like you're always on. Basically, this is us.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, we're probably on a flight somewhere crossing flight patterns.
Yeah.
And that's my focus. My general focus is that, because again, I truly believe that everybody should be capable of these skills, and everybody can be.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part. It's like, I believe in you, motherfuckers. You can do it. Just show up. I promise. Right? Like, I promise people that. And then I have a strong team right now of two dudes, Dylan Vensky and Hunter Constantine. These two dudes are my firearms guys. They're world-class shooters. They're competitive grandmasters. They understand shooting at the highest levels, right? And combatives, or the combative side of shooting, it's just shooting fast at the best opportune time.
Yeah.
So why not take the dudes who are the best shooters and then add combative elements to it, right?
Yeah.
So I have these two guys, and they're heading the program for me as far as pistol goes. So all firearms specific training, and then all carbine style training. Those two guys are kind of managing that for me while I run around doing this. Dan the Hitman Murray, he's a ex-UFC guy, ex-Bellator fighter. He helps me with combatives. And there's some other people that we're prospecting and trying to develop as well. Look, when I went from every element of work, I always wanted a team, right? I didn't want like my team. I wanted a team.
Yeah.
And this is, I'll call my team and I'll call the guys and I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this decision? It's completely up to me, right? Like, the responsibility is going to fall on me whether it fails or it does well, but I include them in it. I want them to know that they're a part of what I'm doing, and we're doing it together. And so having those guys has really helped at least keep the momentum of shooting, because we want people to be able to shoot well, both of the guns that they carry, all of the stuff that they have, but the fighting aspect is what more people are going to be seeing of me. And then I talked to the guys about this. It's a model that I have. I do combatives, and the guys do firearms on the same location. So now we have the 14 max in my class. I cap all my classes at 14. 14 going on here, 14 going on here, and we interchange and we have lunch together, and we're always like, it's a giant group of people, and it just generates that like, oh shit, look what they're doing. Oh shit, look what they're doing. And now we're fucking intermingling. Dude, it's just like, it's an event. Like, people love this shit, and I love the people that come to it, and it does build this really cool sense of community.
Yeah, it's an awesome community. I think I've been witnessing it as it kind of grows, and you know, some of the people that go into, I mean, I got advice on physical rehab with some of the students at one of your classes, advice on holsters by somebody else there.
Dude, everything. There's an exchange, and I do this as well. I tell people, like, exchange business cards, create a network of people. We've had everything from lawyers to copyright attorneys to business management to guys who build infrastructures, engineers, and everybody's exchanging information. And now you have a bunch of people that can do all the things you can't do, right? It's like the collection of information to build this program. Now you have a collection of people that are capable in realms that you just can't because your bandwidth, right? That's that true sense of fucking community, man. I think that's what's important. And it's not cliche, and it's not just some shit we talk about. Like, I came into San Diego yesterday, had dinner with one of the guys, said what's up to his family. Like, to be invited to somebody's home means a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And then I get to have breakfast with you, maybe lunch. And it's one of those things where a true community will have time for each other in that way. And I hear stories of people connecting after classes. Like, hey, we went out and we practiced some of this shit. Or, hey, the new guy that lives at exactly 1 mile away from me that I met in your class that I would have never have met. We're now best friends and we go shooting all the time.
The minorities start recognizing each other's, right? Yeah.
Dude. And what's the best thing, and I think why it's so inviting and welcoming, there's no seafood, there's no top of the food chain, there's no bow to me bullshit, right? We're all fucking equal. I'll get in there and I'll lose with you sometimes and I'll win sometimes. And it doesn't matter because we're in this shit together, right? If it's a true team, there's no winners or losers, just motherfuckers building, right? And that's why I get in there and I fight with the guys, which is, again, I made fun of this a long time ago where I kept hearing the terms demo everything. And I was like, hey guys, that's obvious. You have to demo things, but if you have to tell people that you're the guy that demos things, then now you're just highlighting something you should be doing anyway. It's redundant. Yeah. So just teach people and do the shit, and you don't have to talk about it. But it goes back to show me, not fucking tell me.
Yeah, show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great program. I'm a big fan of it.
Thanks, man.
We're collaborating on something at the end of the year as well.
We got that one at the end of the year in Escondido. And then I talked to the team that you have, right? And we have another one in Dallas mid next year. And then we have something to be determined with you guys in February. So
and for people, like when we talk about doing a class together, basically people are invited to an open conversation between two people that have different experiences that came up with some pretty similar solutions to some of them. Yeah. And I'll go into like some videos and talking about how some of these things happen and go hands on with some of the aspects of blade work. We're gonna actually have a pig for the class we're doing at the end of the year, so people can experience flesh. Yes. Which is it. Flesh is a teacher. It shows you some things. I mean, we're not gonna do anything stupid with it. There's a reverence and there's a very specific use that we use that for, and to give people an experience of what that is. Yeah. But again, the minority that is discovering each other out there, that weird ass community that is kind of interconnecting between both of our audiences and people kind of showing up basically. That's been very. There's a lot of negative shit happening in the world, but it's one of the good positive things that I found out, that there's a lot of people like us that are willing to kind of step up and do some of this type of stuff and to become self-sufficient in that way, And I think you're very good at kind of pulling some of that shit out of people.
I try, man, because I believe in them. And I believe in myself, because here's another thing that I think a lot of guys miss out on because they don't know how to do it in a genuine way. Like, if you don't like yourself, people aren't going to like you. You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
Yeah. But then it looks like showboaty. And I picked it up from a friend who's not on Instagram anymore. But he made a post and he's like, he's the first one to like his own shit when he posts it. And I do the same shit. Okay. As soon as I post it, I fucking like my own shit. If I don't like it, why should you like it? You know what I mean?
I get it.
It's not any more than I put the shit up. I thought it was fucking cool. I'm letting you know it's cool. Carry on, right? But then that feeds into real life. If I don't take care of myself, respect myself, how are kids gonna respect me growing up in the household, right? If I don't clean up my shit, how do I expect them to clean up after themselves? If I'm not in shape, how do I expect people to be in shape when I'm yelling at them to be in shape for this fight, right? So I share all that stuff genuinely, my eating, my working out, all this shit I share with people so that not that I'm like, hey, emulate me, but it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm just a fucking kid with a GED who understood how to make a business happen from other business dealings, right? And shit can work as long as you fucking try. But if you don't like yourself, man, people aren't going to like you. And this is where I think people have a hard time in this industry.
Yeah. I mean, ego's a bitch. Ego death is also hard to find.
You get that shit from psychedelics, but guys are scared of shit like that because they're scared of facing themselves.
Well, again, ego death.
Yeah.
People want to live forever. I think that's what most people struggle with.
Man, the biggest lesson I learned as a leader, and I live it to this fucking day, is if I'm going to teach people something, I want to teach them to the point where they don't fucking need me. then I did my job.
Yeah.
But if you need me for solutions, I fucking failed you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want you to be as good as me or better and then not need me anymore because you've excelled. Yeah. And if you're not motivating people to be better than you, you're really just holding them as little patsies.
Yeah.
And I don't want that shit. I want people to excel beyond whatever I did.
If I can give anybody anything after a class, is their ability to be more of a more critical thinker of what they see and to judge things through their own experience and to start building that up. Where can people find out more about you?
Let's see. My page on Instagram is raul.martinez.jr. and it's mostly like funny shit and memes.
I follow you. I follow you.
And just random stuff and some motivational stuff here and there and family stuff. It's just me. It's like, it's easy to be me on Instagram. And that's what I get from people. They're like, man, you're just like you are on Instagram. I was like, well, how do you want me to be? You know, they're like, well, we've met a lot of people from Instagram. They're fucking assholes in real life. I'm like, sorry for you, man. The company page is rogue.methods on Instagram. And that's where we post more class photos, training drills, people fighting, people doing cool shit, and showing you what our programs are all about. And then the website is rogue-methods. So if anybody wants to see our training schedule, they can go on there.
Awesome.
And you can find my team as well on the Rogue Methods page. So if you guys want to follow the guys.
One of the most exciting classes I've been to this year was yours. So thank you for that. I think definitely you're somebody that I'm keeping an eye on, and I think a lot of people should keep an eye on your work. Valuable work. I learned a lot from going to that class, and I'm learn a lot just watching your videos online, man. So,
hell yeah.
Thank you for making the trek down.
Fuck yeah, dude. As soon as that offer came out, I was like, let's do it.
Let's have another fucking conversation, but this time probably next to a bunch of dudes with guns and a pig hanging somewhere.
I'm about it. The people are already, that class is sold out. We're ready to rock that one.
Raul, thank you for coming down. Thank you for your friendship.
Fuck yeah.
And definitely check Rogue Methods out. Thank you.